already approved. Several are in development. The BBC's Richard Kagoe has more.
The announcement paves way for the trials that had been previously approved by a World Health Organization ethics committee. 11 people have died and 36 cases have been reported. The Health Ministry says efforts to contain the outbreak are beginning to pay off. Neighboring countries which had previously reported cases of the hemorrhagic fever are on high alert and have stepped up border surveillance. The African Union and WHO have sent doctors to support local efforts to prevent the spread of the disease.
The top story at 3 o'clock, former Steinhoff CFO Benjamin Lachranzi has been sentenced to 10 years direct imprisonment by the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalemele.
In sports this hour, Bafana welcomed the return of Williams back in the squad. Bangladesh beat Scotland by 16 runs in the Women's T20 World Cup, and Dolphins excited for the 2024-25 home start. More details at 3:30.
Jon Gericke on SAFM. Dis-Chem makes healthy living easier with the best deals on the widest range of health foods. Enjoy 2+1 cheapest free on any Future Life products and on any Jacob's Coffee products. Plus, swipe your Dis-Chem benefit card to get a 25% instant discount on Little Bee and Lifestyle Food Honey. Healthy living offers now on until 13 October, in-store and online. Only at Dis-Chem. Better health starts here.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa! Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The reality is that 90% of South Africans don't save enough for retirement. This National Seniors Month, why not be part of the 10% who do? Choose an interest rate of up to 11.7% after 60 months with a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account. Anyone 55 and over can open one on the Money app in less than 2 minutes. Go to nedbank.co.za for more info. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumali, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Jon Gericke on SAFM.
Hello, it's 8 minutes past 3 o'clock. Welcome to the show. John with you through till 6 in for Ashraf Garda. It's the National Pulse. Let me tell you what's coming up in this hour, and I'm looking forward to these conversations, actually. Today, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but it was revealed by SASSA that 17 million people applied for the 370 Rand Social Relief Grant of Distress this month. 17 million people. That's an increase of more than 3 million people since 2021. So what kind of a welfare state are we living in? Are we just a welfare state? Are we just taking a little bit of tax and just giving it out in welfare? Is it the right thing to do? And what is the process? What is SASSA doing about that? How are they managing all of that as well? And how are they deciding of those 17 million people that applied who are able to get it? What are the rules and criteria? We'll talk to SASSA about that in a moment. Russia's President Vladimir Putin's getting a little desperate. He has now announced a new law that allows convicts and suspects, particularly those whose cases are under investigation, to avoid prosecution if they join the army. Do you really want those kind of people in the army? Well, Russia seems like they do. Then my special guest, just after the news and sport and everything at past, is Jay Naidu, social activist. He served as minister with our portfolio with President Nelson Mandela's cabinet. Remember him? He's been in Canada. He's just done a whole talk about the future of South Africa, the one we want and deserve. And he's become a bit of an environmentalist, and he focused in his speech a lot on the Northwest Province and the massive wealth that is under the feet of the people in the Northwest Province. And yet more than half of the people in that province are unemployed. And he's been talking about the legacy, the history, and it's the farmers that are working together, the birthright of people that live in this country and how they are not experiencing that, how the country was supposed to have moved out of apartheid to be able to help the people. He was there, and we will talk to Jay Naidoo about that speech and other things as well. We'll ask him about the national unity. We'll ask him about where we are at the moment, what his views are in South Africa, what South Africa we want and deserve. And then the city of Johannesburg, I don't know if you must know this. If you're a city of Johannesburg or you ever do the drive from Joburg to Pretoria and vice versa, you will know that there are blue lights, the old blue light brigade. And we've seen incidents, violent incidents with the blue lights brigade. But go for a drive to Pretoria and these guys will come up behind you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They will flash their lights. They will almost force you off the road. Now the DA and the city of Johannesburg are taking the city of asking the city of Johannesburg to review its VIP protection policy. I'm just going to double check this, but I think they don't have the blue lights in Cape Town, right? Help me out if you're a Cape Townian. And the DA is now taking the city to court, accusing it of misusing the blue lights, and it violates the Municipal Systems Act and the Constitution. We will talk to the DA Shadow MMC for Public Safety in the city of Johannesburg and get their views and ask them why they are doing this. But also, as always, we're going to take your... So there are big stories for you to get involved in today. So, SASSA grants we're going to talk about in a moment. Help us out with that one. There's what's going on in Russia, and we'll see what they have to say. The future of South Africa we want and deserve. Love your views on that. And what do you make of the blue lights? Do you think there is still place for blue light brigades? I'm of the opinion that whoever keeps these very important people's diaries needs to know that it's going to take an hour to get from Joburg to Pretoria at best. So you schedule the appointments an hour, hour and a half. How many times have they've been late? Why are they late? Because the blue lights just aren't working anyway. Or get on the Gautrain. If you're in Joburg Central, get on the Gautrain Park Station, you're in Pretoria 20 minutes. I don't know. Let us know what you think. Our numbers, as always, 086 000 2032 if you want to phone. We like that. 086 000 2032, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note. 0614 104 107.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Jon Gericke in for Ashraf. The South African Social Security Agency has revealed that more than 17 million people applied for the 370 Rand Social Relief of Distress grant last month. Let me say that again, 17 million people. The latest figures show that there's an increase of more than 3 million people since 2021. Let's find out about these numbers with Paseka Letsatsi, spokesperson for SASSA. Paseka, thank you very much for joining us. Are you as worried as I am that this many people need grants?
Good afternoon, John, and thanks for having me. Look, I think we must just put the record straight. Yes, your figures are correct.
Mm-hmm.
That 17 million people have just submitted their application. But maybe I must just emphasize that this is an application. It's not an approval. These people, they still have to go through the verification process. It can mean either they can go down or they can stay where they are. But we thought it's important for us to give it a chance because not everybody may qualify. Having said that, I just want to make mention of the fact that we have observed the highest level of fraud in the past months or so. People who are taking chances in terms of making the application. So we would suggest that we give it a chance. Perhaps once the verification process is done, we'll then come back here and give you the correct figures in terms of how many who have qualified.
Okay, let's run. How many SASSA grants, or how many of the 370 Rand, the Social Relief of Distress grant, how many people are receiving that every month?
We are moving just around 13 million people.
13 million?
Yes.
Okay. This 17 million that is now applied, is that on top of the 13 million, or is that an increase of 4 million that are hoping to get the grant?
It's an increase, but what we have done, because the status of individual will change from time to time.
Right.
So if you have applied now and you are approved and you get your money, it does not mean automatically you will get the 370 the following month, because you might be employed, you might have another source of income or whatever. So, but by just the short of it, you can simply say the number would be around 13. So it might be correct what you are saying, that it has gone up by about 3 million.
Okay, but obviously, maybe of those, that 3 or 4 million, they might all not be granted. That's the point. So there are these strict rules and regulations when it comes to the SRD.
No, definitely they might not be approved, but I'm prepared to make an appointment with you in the next 3 or 4 weeks to give you the outcome, to say these are the exact figures. But as we speak now, I might just have to be careful in terms of certain things which we do to check the people which they are trying to commit the fraud. We catch them, what they do and so forth. So the number, I can assure you, that will definitely go down.
So 17 million are a lot of applications, Paseka. It's how long does it take you to get through all of those? Make sure everyone is legit, make sure it's all right, and maybe slowing things down for those that legitimately need the money.
When we started, I can assure you it was tedious, very difficult, but because we have been doing this for some time now, it doesn't take long for us to finish the process. To make sure that we process, because we must make sure that people get their money that month. People don't have to wait for long. Within the week, we will definitely tell you that this is the number of people who qualified. These are the people who might have made a mistake in terms of giving us the incorrect ID number or giving us the wrong cell phone number, because one digit, John, can just kick you out of the system. So basically, those are the things we check, but we just don't disqualify you. If we find that there's just a small mistake, we do communicate with you that please give us the correct ID number, please give us the correct cell phone number, because we check with the banks, we check with all other government institutions just to check that people not double dip as the first thing, or people don't take chances. But if I can tell you, the things that we see, sometimes people just try their luck. You ask yourself why a person who is earning such a lot of money is trying their luck. But the system is such that we're able to it's able to block them from applying this 370, because it's only meant for people who don't have anything.
There were reports that some of the grants are going up. Inflation is hitting us quite hard. Is that 370 going up?
The 370, as it is now, it's not going up. What has gone up is basically your normal grants, your old age grants, your war veteran grants, your care dependency grants, and I'm sure, most of them have gone up with grants. Remember?
Don't know what we need to remember. What do we need to
remember? This is the
Sorry,
second one.
You broke up when you said remember?
Oh, I apologize for that. I'm saying it went up in April. This is the second increase, which is being effected in the normal grants. But the 370 remains as it is.
I know your job is to make sure people are legit and to hand it out, but $370, I realize for somebody who has nothing, it's 370 Rand more than they would have. But is that even, can you live on $370 a month?
Look, John, I think there are processes of engagement. The mandate of SASSA is to administer the distribution.
Right.
But anything that has got to do with a policy would lie squarely within the Department of Social Development. And in terms of the PERS, I'm sure we know that it's the National Treasury which will say, in terms of the budget we have, this is how much you can then be able to afford. Given all the competing stuff in our country, you would then be told that in terms of the budget, this is the budget that we must distribute, this is the criteria you must follow. The department will give us the regulations which we need to make sure implement to the tip.
There was one message that's come through and said the phone line isn't working. They've been trying to phone the SASSA offices. Have you had those kind of reports?
Well, knowledge, I know that the phones are working, but I know that in some instances I would want to appeal to those who make a call to be patient, because the system just show people call at the same time, and the agent on the other side must make sure that they just don't brush quickly and give you some, but they go with you through the system and be able to help you.
And 17 million people have applied, so I imagine the phone lines get a bit busy this time of the month.
No, definitely. 17 million people have applied to you. Just imagine.
Okay, so Paseka, you're going to let us know of those 17 million people how many of them have qualified? Because what's important to know, and towards the end of your press release here, or from Groundup's article, it says here that more than half of the applicants have never been employed, 9.2 million, but 4.8 million people have been working in a year or less. 384,000 actually have jobs. But so they won't qualify. If you have a job and you're earning some sort of money, you won't qualify for an SRD, will you? Right, have we lost him at last? All right. Sorry, but one more time, Paseka, let's try it. No. All right, Paseka Letsatsi, thank you very much, spokesperson for the South African Social Security Agency. You know them as SASSA, and thank you for your messages as well.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with One Life. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the morning brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
You are listening to Jon Gericke on SAFM.
22 minutes past 3, Johnny for Ashraf. Messages are coming through about SASSA. I knew we'd get this, and that's kind of why we did it a little bit, so we can get a feeling of where these grants, where the grant situation is at the moment. Because every time we do this, we get reports about just how bad it is. And if Paseka is true to his word, we'll get him on the phone in a couple of weeks, and we'll not only find out how many people are trying to fraud the system, but also how many people are struggling with the system. For example, hi John, my wife's applying, and this thing keeps on saying the ID verification and an SMS will be sent in 24 hours. The system is useless. Tabo in Ennerdale said that. He says the Paseka is just blowing hot air. Somebody else has sent us a long message, which I haven't had time to read. Please pass that on to the SASSA spokesperson. So it's an ongoing issue, and yeah, we need to keep an eye on this, because these people, and I'm sure you'll agree, $370, not a lot of money. You can't do very much with it, but it's more than zero, and every little cent helps. And if you rely on that, or you are hoping to rely on that, and the system's not working, then what can you do? So we'll get Paseka on again in a couple of weeks. Let's move on to our international global feature. Before I do that, there was a tweet. Somebody was trying to be clever, saying that are you told not to say anything about Israel and Iran war? Are you not tired of Russia-Ukraine war? If you listened to us, Bad Breath General TT, yesterday, we focused most of the show on what Israel was doing. We had a long conversation, a couple of conversations about that. So today we're going to focus on what is happening in Russia, because the president there, Vladimir Putin, announced a new law that allows convicts and suspects, particularly those whose cases are under investigation, to avoid prosecution if they join the army. The new measure comes as Russia's military resources have been depleted over 2.5 years of fighting in Ukraine. The Russian government's boosting its military spending and aiming to recruit more troops. Roland Henwood is lecturer in the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria. Not the first time that Vladimir Putin has done this, Roland.
No, it's not. This started actually in 2021 already, though differently focused in that the Wagner Group had access to the prisons, and they were allowed to recruit people in prison, mostly hardened criminals, people with serious offences, and then trained them, and in exchange they got a contract, they got a salary, and they got basically the promise of the criminal record essentially being expunged upon the completion of the contract. That stopped after the mutiny of the Wagner Group and the Russian military Department of Defense taking the control over. But then the MOD itself continued with this project, and indications are that more than 100,000 prisoners have been recruited into the armed forces. In total, that's Wagner and the Ministry of Defense.
What kind of people are these?
Well, I think it depends. You have to look at the cycles that is of recruitment. When there's huge pressure, it's in a way it seems anything goes. And then when the pressure is not that critical, but there's still a need, of course, for people, other prisoners or people who are under investigation, as you indicated, may be utilized. And that depends. People who are already in prison, especially those with long sentences, seems to be coerced to sign contracts, to join the military, receive some training, and then are dispatched to the front in Ukraine. And the indications are mostly into areas of danger and where the likelihood of not surviving is quite high.
Are they just being sent into a meat grinder?
Well, that's effectively what's happening. That's also the strategy the Russians use. It's called the meat grinder strategy, in that these are people that can be sacrificed. One must look at the politics also. I mean, recently President Putin indicated a need for an additional, or instructed that an additional 180,000 recruits for the war effort must be found. But there's a great care and political sensitivity. So, for instance, very few people from Moscow and surrounding areas are recruited because of the political risks that go with that. So you're looking at people from outlying areas, and then, of course, people who are in prison. Many of them are ostracized from society in a way because of the crimes they committed. So they seem literally as expendable. And there's also indication of female prisoners being not treated in the same way, but also being recruited and also sent to the front to be part of the war effort.
Part of my reading, the Washington Post has reported where those imprisoned soldiers serving in the battlefield have returned home and then reoffended.
Yes, well, I mean, also, now one must be careful because there's a lot of propaganda in this. But from Ukraine, if one looks at the reports, it indicates that some of the war crimes that have been highlighted are actually linked to some of the units where you've had some of the really serious or hardened criminals being involved. Now, that, of course, is very difficult to prove, but that's the perspective that's being created around and the narrative that's being created around this process.
Is Russia in trouble in having to do this?
I think that depends on how you look at the situation. Russia is in trouble in the sense that indications are that they've lost between 600,000 and 700,000 men in this war so far. That's a staggering amount of people. I mean, compare that to South Africa, that's like 6-7 times, maybe more, our complete defense force. Wow. So it's massive. Now, Russia has a big defense force, it has a big population, but this is not sustainable. And the other dimension is, I refer to political sensitivities, but there's a third element. You don't want to sacrifice your best troops, your well-trained troops, your expensive troops in the sense, if that is your strategy. In other words, you're just sending people in who are hoping to wear down the enemy. In other words, it's a continuous waves of people coming in and essentially they're just being killed. So that's going to have a huge effect on the numbers. It's going to have an effect on morale. Politically, it's quite sensitive, so you can't just send any troops in there.
Winter's around the corner. What is the current state of affairs?
At this stage, along large parts of the front line, it's fairly static, small gains on both sides, but Russia's just in the last days had a fairly important breakthrough in the Donbas region. That will probably be used not necessarily as a breakthrough and a faster deployment. I don't think the logistics and the numbers are there, but that's basically building a new front line for the next phase of the war. And then on the other side, Ukraine definitely having a strong foothold in Russia, not seemingly planning to let that go soon. So there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of war effort going in, a lot of destruction happening, but on the war front itself, not that much movement at this stage.
Roland Henwood, thank you very much. Lecturer in the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria. Brings us to exactly 3:30. Madupi has your headlines.
Thank you very much, John, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, Electricity Minister Kgosian Soramokgopa says he's confident that the government will provide relief around the proposed electricity tariff hikes. Former Steinhoff CFO Benjamin Gericke has been sentenced to 10 years direct imprisonment by the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. And the UK has announced that it has given up sovereignty of the remote but strategically important Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean to Mauritius after more than half a century. A full news update coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a stationary truck reported before the R23 Benoni exit, and Solomon Mhlangu Drive westbound in Pretoria has delays towards Kudusnik Avenue. In Durban, the N2 southbound slow moving on the ramp to the N3 west at Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 outbound is queuing towards Pavilion Mall. In Cape Town, Main Road on Friday will be closed in the central Simonstown area from 7 a.m. until 9:30 for the parade event, so expect delays and diversions. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Tumi, Women's World Cup has begun.
It has officially begun.
Whoop, whoop.
Hi, yes, there I am. It has officially begun, and just starting with that, we saw how the opening match of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup seeing Bangladesh take all the points as they beat Scotland by 16 runs. Sobhana Mostari top scored for Bangladesh with 36 runs as they set a 120-run target for the opponents on the day. In reply, Scotland were restricted to just 103 for 7 in their 20 overs. Still staying with the domestic cricket now, the Dolphin men's side will play their first home game in the CSA T20 Challenge tomorrow against the Titans at Kingsmead Stadium. The match forms part of a double-header against Titans, with the Dolphins ladies playing Titans in the morning. The squad is basically the same, with just one change, as Andile Semelani coming into the squad after his return from the Proteas in place of Ngobane Mokoena. Then in football, Bafana head coach Hugo Bruce has named his final 23-man squad to face Congo in the upcoming 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The squad is dominated by Mamelodi Sundowns players, with 8 named, including Ihrem Reyners, and Orlando Pirates are also represented with 6 players, including Sipho Chain, Tabiso Sesani, Relebohile Mofokeng, amongst others. The squad also sees the return of experienced skipper Ronald Williams and notable exclusion of Percy Tau. The match is at Nelson Mandela Stadium at 6 p.m. and that's happening on the 11th of October. Meanwhile, Lesedi Kapinga has signed for Sekhukhune United after terminating his contract at Orlando Pirates by mutual agreement. It is a return to Limpopo province, where his career began, with promise and a chance to play regularly in the Betway Premiership again. No details were given by Sekhukhune of the contract terms for the 29-year-old, who started only 2 games during his one-season stay at Pirates. Then in rugby, Springbok women's scrum half Tyler Kinsey says that she is expecting a physical but entertaining clash when they face Australia at the DHL Stadium on Saturday. The Boks will be chasing their second win in the competition, coming on off the back of the 31-24 win over Japan last weekend. Kinsey says that they are looking forward to grinding out a win against a team that has a similar style of play.
We'll look to equal them in our scrum dominance and forward dominance kind of game. We know it's going to be physical as well as fast. We also expect a kicking game from them, but it's nothing we aren't used to, and if a team is physical against us, then that's great. We're all about that, so it'll be very interesting and a very interesting clash with two Southern Hemisphere teams going against each other. But it's also a fresher breath air because we used to play Northern Hemisphere teams, so I think it'll be a very good game to watch.
On that note, it is a wrap from my side. Just quickly an update with regards to the Cricket Women's World Cup. I see now Pakistan is going to take on Sri Lanka. Pakistan won the toss, and it'll be interesting to see how that matchup pans out. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Jimmy, thank you very much. I was going to say you'll be back in an hour's time, but you did it. It's okay. I get paid the same. It's fine.
Wink.
Well, with Jimmy again in an hour's time, I said it.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the toothpaste so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Susampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The world's best football league makes its return to S3. Will Arsenal finally win their first title since 2004? Or will Man City continue their dominance of the league and win their 7th title under Pep Guardiola? Will the Dutchman in Erik ten Hag and Arne Slot have something to say as Man United and Liverpool step in to contest for the title? But it's not only about winning the title. For some of the 20 teams, it's a chance to improve on their performances from last season. While for others, it's the battle to avoid relegation and stay in the top flight. Every team has a point to prove. This is not just football. This is a masterpiece being played out every weekend. Channel your best sport with the English Premier League. Saturdays at 3 p.m. on S3. Open up.
This summer, we have extra large offers on Ford Ranger XL, XLT and Wildtrak from only $481,900 for a Ranger XL single cab 4x2. It's the extra large Ranger offer from only $481,900. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer. Optional service plan included. While stocks last. T&Cs apply.
It's time to crown Miss World South Africa 2024. Tune into S3 this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8 p.m. as Miss World South Africa 24 takes center stage on S3. This year's pageant will be taking place live at the Sun City Super Bowl and tickets available at Quicket. Channel your inner star with the 2024 Miss World South Africa finale this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8:30 p.m. Only on S3. Open up.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
What kind of South Africa? What kind of future do we wish for in South Africa? Former Minister and social activist Jay Naidoo joins us now to share his thoughts on the future South Africa we want and deserve topic. Recently, the former minister took part in the Future South Africa We Want and Deserve dialogues, an initiative run by Higher Education Media to deepen democracy through robust conversations. And you'll hear he's quite robust at the moment. According to him, one of the big questions we need to ask ourselves is how legitimate are those that sit in Parliament today? Jay Naidoo joins us now. I could introduce you, Jay Naidoo, but I think... all right, we're struggling to get hold of Jay Naidoo. I know he's in Canada, so we're going to get those telephone lines working across the globe and use all the satellites and things. While we're getting him on the line, you can give us a call, 086 000 2032, and the voice note number in case you missed it, 0614 104 107. Jay Naidoo, good afternoon or good is it morning to you now? How are things going on your side? Jay Naidoo, are you there?
Yes.
Hello, Jay. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us about this, what you've been doing in Canada.
Well, I'm now nearly 70, so I'm an elder, So I have grandchildren here. I have grandchildren in South Africa. My wife is from Quebec in Canada, so we're here to see her parents who are quite elderly and not well. So yeah, I launched our book. It's called In Love and Revolution. It's a book about what do we do at the moment when so many young people are facing so many challenges, And I think back to the time when I was young. The issues, though huge, that were confronting us in our struggle for freedom was black and white. If you look at not just our country, but you look at the world today, it's all gray. There are so many challenges. There's now even the threat of not just conventional wars that have been fought, but the threat of nuclear war even rising on the horizon. So if you look at the ecological catastrophe, the science is out there that we are all facing a point in our humanity and our journey as humanity where the jury is out as to whether we will survive as a species with all other life forms in this planet. So if you add that onto the fact that now technology has progressed so rapidly to a point where machines are going to do a lot of the job, so that will relieve us of the daily pressures of work. But what will we do? These are questions that we have to answer. It means we have to look at the education system. What are we training people to do if we are going to be driving in 5 years' time or cars that drive themselves or trucks that drive themselves? I think we really need to have a serious debate, particularly in South Africa, about healing our woundedness. We have this concept of a rainbow nation that Archbishop Tutu conjured up, which is a brilliant lodestar for us to work towards. But be honest with us today, it's 40% of South Africans did not vote in the last election. What does it say about the legitimacy of our parliament and of our democracy? And what was clear to me in that election result is that the electorate sent a clear signal to all politicians and all political parties: we do not trust any of you to give you power on your own. So now how do they begin to cooperate and then understand how to work with citizens? And this is what I am involved in. Can we have a debate when the president says we are open to work with civil society and we want to hear from the point of view of people? I'm living in the Magaliesberg Platinum Belt. It is an ecological catastrophe. 2 months ago, a huge alliance of about 60 organizations gathered, which included farmers, both white and black, farm workers. There were activists from townships. There was an extraordinary meeting across race and color and status and power. And we all agreed that this is a catastrophe. Our underground water is now contaminated with chemicals. We're having traffic that is destroying our road infrastructure. There's even reports of human trafficking and illegal mining that is destroying one of the most fertile bread baskets and citrus baskets of the Northwest and of Gauteng. Surely we should be sitting down now and saying we have a national emergency on the Platinum Belt, like in many other places, not just in South Africa, but across Africa and the world. Can't we just sit down and say, and this is what I'm saying as an elder, we sat down in 1993 to talk to each other, and we realized that if we just focus on what we are carrying with all our baggage and our presumptions and our prejudices, we will never have a country. We knew we were on the road to a racial civil war, but we rose above that and found the common ground. I think that the greatest challenge facing South Africa today is woundedness, because racism is raising its head again, and the divisions between black and white are becoming similar to the conversations that I saw in the 80s. We need to preempt that, but we can only do that together through human unity, by listening to each other, seeing each other, and actually becoming each other and becoming part of nature. That was what I talked about yesterday.
One of the things you raised as well was the rights of land and water, and you feel that that is not being handled correctly.
absolutely not been handled correctly. When we did the transition in 1994, it was on the basis of new policy that came from the grassroots movements, from the People's Forum that we had. And what we agreed there, unlike under apartheid, that water and the mineral wealth of our country cannot be owned by individuals. It's owned by all of us, 60 million South Africans, and the government is supposed to manage this. Now, in terms of using water or mining, you have to get a license. You have to get a license from government. And that license is premised on the fact that there has to be consultation in the local area. We have over 30 illegal chrome wash plants in the Platinum Belt today. It is causing devastation to our water and to our soil content and our soil fertility. And so what we are having, we actually, in legislation, put the idea that if you are mining, you need a social and labor plan. The reality is that it is in legislation, but right now that whole area where communities are supposed to be properly consulted, where communities should be involved in determining their priorities, this whole process has been hijacked by consultants and by people working for the mining companies and by NGOs that are supported by the mining companies, because they just want a tick-box exercise. So the way in which the social and labor plans were envisaged was that there's proper consultation. So we have to invest in communities developing their own priorities, and this is what I have started to do with communities. We do not need communities to be mediated by NGOs, consultants, or some other entity. They must negotiate directly with the mining companies, and because many of these foundations and NGOs that have been set up do not represent the real interest of communities. So I'm advocating that there should be proper negotiations set up, and we should be empowering communities to negotiate on their priorities. In terms of water, we've had this issue. It's come up in the media even, that the dams of our country belong to the people. And so there's a perimeter around the dams. And Kada Asmal, in the time when I was a minister in the Mandela cabinet, made sure that communities have access to all the dams, namely one dam where communities, especially people that have been previously disadvantaged, have access, open access to our dams. In the Buffelsford Dam, I know most white owners of land alongside the dam have now fenced right up to the water. It's illegal, but the state does nothing about it. And what I'm saying is that can the ministers that are in this cabinet respond to a document we sent to them 2 months ago in which we gave them 60 days to address the illegal mining that is taking place in our Platinum region. We have not one minister acknowledged. We haven't had a response. We haven't had an engagement. And yet this government talks about the ability of it and its commitment to consultation. I have raised with certain ministers, why don't you respond? I still have no answer.
That was going to be my next question, Jay Naidu, is are the elders being heard? People with you with years and years of experience, you're obviously not being listened to.
Not at all. And we have no commitment. I'm not in business. I'm not in NGOs. I'm not in unions. I'm not in anything. I'm standing up as a resident in an area which has been obliterated by an ecological catastrophe. And there's no reaction from a government. Where we have written to them. I want them to answer. I want them to answer because this is what they committed as a GNU. But it's a never, never promise. And this is the point where the anger is rising in our country about the lack of delivery, about the corruption that we are facing, and about the blatant impunity of those people in power that collaborate and are complicit in money and finances that should be going to the needs of our people, now being abused for their personal enrichment.
Then how important is this dialogue? How important is this dialogue that you're having, this future South Africa we want and deserve dialogues, to have more of these, to make them more loud?
Yes, and this is why we need to go back to our people's forums. We need to go back. civil society has been so thoroughly captured by big philanthropy and big foundations that they spend more time answering to bean counters in some Western capital than dealing with the needs of their own communities. When I go to the community living in the middle of the mine dumps in the Platinum region, I see children next to a mine dump of chrome, having to breathe the dust every day, having to go outside when there's blasting, and it's literally 200 meters away from a school. Now, I chair the Global Foundation dealing with malnutrition. If we do not address nutrition and provide a safe environment for children from the point of conception to 2 years, which is 1,000 days, that child is permanently stunted, mentally and physically challenged. We have hundreds of children staying next to a mine dump. Now, you know what chrome poisoning is? It's deadly. And water that is carrying chemicals is deadly. Blasts. Can you imagine growing up as a child where every day you have to experience a mine blast, and we think that this is democracy? I mean, Jesus Christ. I can't believe that we have fought for freedom and sacrificed so much over hundreds of years. And that agreement that we had in 1994 is an agreement between black and white in the ancestral plane that we should stop the war. But the war against black communities continues. And the exploitation, the marginalization, and the alienation and the exclusion of black people cannot continue any longer in our country.
Jay Naidoo.
We have to address this issue right now.
Jay Naidoo, thank you very much. Social activist, served as Minister without portfolio in President Nelson Mandela's cabinet. Some strong words from him. What are your views?
The Meeting Point with Koketso Sachane.
Pravin has really helped us understand what has become to be known as the phenomenon of state capture. He initiated this group of academics who produced the first set of academic material on what we understood then to be state capture under the title of Connecting the Dots, which I think enables South Africans for the first time to understand the various issues that they were really trying to comprehend and make sense of. And in that way, I think, created the basis for the public challenge to state capture as it became known, both within the ANC, but also more within the public domain.
Nishan Bolton, the Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation.
The Meeting Point on SAFM.
Congratulations to the lucky winners who've already walked away with their share of 50,000 Rand from One Life. You still have one more chance to win 15,000 Rand tomorrow on SAFM. All you have to do is enter online and you could be a lucky winner to get a call to play on the morning brief. Plus, you can boost your 15,000 Rand winnings with an additional 2,000 Rand when you opt in for an obligation-free One Life cover quote. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Jon Gericke on SAFM.
7 minutes to 4, DA Shadow Minister DA Shadow MMC for Public Safety in the City of Johannesburg is going to tell us now why the DA caucus wants the City of Johannesburg to review its VIP protection policy. The party took the city to court, accusing it of misusing the blue lights, stated it violates the Municipal Systems Act. Councillor Solomon Maila is the DA Shadow MMC for Public Safety in the City of Johannesburg. Councillor, thank you very much for joining us. What's wrong with the blue lights?
Greetings to you and to your listeners, and many thanks for having us. There is nothing particularly wrong with blue lights for as long as the allocation of these tools of trade is done within the framework of the law.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what we mean is that perhaps just to contextualize this discussion, I mean, the tools of trade for the various categories of councillors in the Republic are determined by law. These tools of trade cannot be allocated to councillors based on what an individual or a group of individuals with an exaggerated sense of self-importance want. They are tools of trade, not symbols of status. So in our country, there is something called the determination of upper limits of salaries, allowances, and benefits of different members of municipal councils, which determination is done through an act of parliament called the Remuneration of Public Office Bearers Act of 1998. Item 15.1g of these upper limits provides that personal security may be extended to the executive mayor, to a deputy executive mayor, a deputy mayor, a speaker or a whip of council, who shall be entitled only to 2 bodyguards. Now, importantly, it further states that any deviation from the norm may only be based on the recommendations of the South African Police Service. What this means is that there has got to be a threat and risk analysis conducted by the South African Police Service to determine the sort of protection services that should be allocated to a particular councillor over and above the 2 bodyguards that are provided for by the upper limits.
I think the bottom line as well is it's just very expensive. $3 million a month on VIP protection. The city can barely afford water.
Exactly. This is part of the reason why we as the DA have decided to approach the High Court to say, but this is wrong. You can't just allocate bodyguards and vehicles and all of that to people who believe that they are more important than the residents of the city of Johannesburg without conducting a proper security assessment in terms of the law. All we are calling for is that the allocation of all of these tools of trade must indeed be done within the confines of the law, because we are a law-governed society.
Has the city of Cape Town got rid of blue lights, didn't they?
Well, I wouldn't know, but I do expect that the city of Cape Town, because it is governed by the DA, would ordinarily do everything within the limits of the law. They would not necessarily allocate 10 bodyguards to a Governor Kwamanda, for instance, who has never been threatened by anybody.
So let's use you as an example, because Councillor Solomon Maile, who's the DA Shadow MMC for Public Safety in the City of Johannesburg, if you wanted to use a blue light, what would the process be? Let me give you an example. You're late for a meeting, or you're late for an appearance out in Rudaput. What do you do?
Well, ordinarily, even before a decision is made that bodyguards should be allocated to me, a risk or a threat analysis must be conducted by the South African Police Service to determine whether or not I qualify for protection services paid for by the residents of the city. Mm-hmm. And this is the fundamental issue that we are having as the DA. You don't just, by virtue of an appointment, automatically qualify for blue lights and bodyguards.
Okay, so it's not like you go to a pool and go, Hazard, I'm supposed to be there at 1 o'clock. It's now 1:45. Please, can I get a blue light? Get me through the traffic.
No, it shouldn't work like that. It shouldn't work like that.
Is it working like that?
Well, at the moment, what is happening is because people have been allocated bodyguards and motor vehicles with blue lights, and they're driven around in those vehicles, escorted by by members of the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police Department. That's how it's working, and this is why we are fundamentally opposed to this policy, because they've allocated bodyguards and vehicles to people without following due process and making a determination as to who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. These things are expensive. We need members of the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police Service to be force multiplying to the South African Police Service. We have a huge crime problem in the city. We don't need members of the Johannesburg Metropolitan Police Service to be escorting people who believe that they're more important than the residents of Johannesburg.
Councillor, just quickly, we've got to go to the news, but it was passed. It was in a vote. The city approved the policy. Is this just another case of the DA going to courts to settle the difference?
Yeah, of course, it was passed. As you would know, council decisions sometimes are subjected to a vote, and because the government of local unity, led by the ANC, has the members in council, they passed it on the 19th of March 2024, and this is why we are seeking the intervention of the courts.
Leave it there. Councillor Solomon Maila, thank you very much. DA Shadow MMC for Public Safety in the City of Johannesburg. It's just gone 4 o'clock.
Thanks, John. The top stories this hour. Ramakgopa weighs in on the proposed tariff hikes, and another former Steinhoff boss is sentenced. A very good afternoon. Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramakgopa says he's confident that the government will provide relief around the proposed electricity tariff hikes. He was delivering the keynote address at Africa's premier wind energy event, commonly known as Windaba, in Cape Town. Windaba is a gathering to share relevant and up-to-date information about the wind industry and its contribution to the energy sector. However, there are concerns about Eskom's proposed electricity price hikes and their economic impact. Energy regulator NERSA has been criticized in some quarters for approving above-inflation increases. Ramakgopa says the government is trying to provide a degree of relief.
But I am confident where I am that the issues around the tariff we can provide some degree of relief. But we are not going to soil the NERSA process. So NERSA is going to run its process. I will make that submission as a minister through that process.
Former Steinhoff CFO Benjamin Legrandzi has been sentenced to 10 years direct imprisonment by the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. 5 years of the sentence have been suspended on condition that he's not found guilty of fraud and that he provides evidence to the state in any further criminal case against directors, officers and employees of the Steinhoff Group. Between November and December 2016, Legrandzi and the then CEO Marcus Jooste, who is now deceased, defrauded Steinhoff South Africa of over 367 million rand. Hawks spokesperson Katlego Mogale.
On the instruction of Jooste, Legrandzi created documentations of transactions that supported the fraudulent transaction used to inflate and falsify the annual financial statements of the Steinhoff Group for financial year 2016. After investigations by the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Legrandzi was fined 2 million for the role he played in the Steinhoff at work transaction and barred from holding office in a public company for 10 years.
IEC Commissioner Janet Love says the security of women involved in electoral management must be improved going forward. She was speaking to scores of delegates from various sectors attending the IEC's 30-year dialogue focused on the role of women in leadership in Boksburg on the east of Joburg. Love lamented the rising levels of intimidation experienced by female electoral officers in the elections in May.
It is really with a huge amount of regret that we know that in a number of the provinces, not only the women, but also all of the electoral officers who were in their posts, doing their jobs in our voting stations, received far greater intimidatory threats and far greater issues to do that undermined their own sense of security, even though they were delivering a service to our nation.
Hundreds of e-hailing drivers gathered in Berea, Joburg for the memorial service of Nguquko Gaza, who was killed allegedly by a passenger following a trip from Bertrams to Berea. Gaza was shot and killed on Wednesday last week at the corner of Lily and Olivia Streets in Berea before being robbed of his possessions. One suspect has since been arrested at the Jabulani hostel in Soweto. Another suspect is still at large. The murder has once again put the spotlight on the murder of e-hailing drivers. Gaza's brother, Edma Tingani, says the family is battling to come to terms with the loss of their breadwinner.
She was a breadwinner of the family. He had recently married. I remember 2 years back I went to pay lobola for him to his in-laws. He left a small baby who is about 1 year, 12 months. And imagine the wife was not even aware. He's also one of the people who got the message through the media.
And the UK has announced that it is giving up sovereignty of the remote but strategically important Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean to Mauritius after more than half a century. However, the US will retain its military base in Diego Garcia. The BBC's Andrew Harding has more.
It's one of those disputes that has sort of rumbled on in the background. Most people will never have heard of the Chagos Islands, but they might have heard of Diego Garcia. And that's the island, the American military base, that is really at the heart of the dispute and at the heart of this breakthrough today. And that's how both the Mauritian government and the British government are framing this. It's about security long-term in the Indian Ocean. So basically, in 1968, when Mauritius won its independence, it didn't get full independence. And since then, in the background, the Mauritians have been campaigning to get those islands back.
The top story at 4 o'clock, Electricity Minister Kosian Soramokopa says he's confident that the government will provide relief around the proposed electricity tariff hikes. For SAFM News, Gimudupi Makhalemeli.
In sports this hour, Shamsi opts out of national contract and golf advances to China Open semi-finals. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a stationary truck reported before the R23 Benoni exit. In Durban, the N2 southbound slow moving on the ramp to the N3 west at Spaghetti Junction. The N3 outbound is queuing towards Pavilion Mall exit, and Mgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M3 Philip Khasana Drive outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
You are listening to Jon Gericke on SAFM.
John and Fashraf, it's 8 minutes past 4. Coming up in the next hour or so, we are going to talk about the worrying issue about water. It's not just in Gauteng, but around the world, water is a cause of conflict, and it can be used not only as a reason, but it can be used as a weapon as well. So it's been exacerbated by corruption, organized crime, massive illegal deforestation, for example, carbon sequestration systems, accelerating climate change. Water is a huge issue. We're going to talk about that with a Senior Research Associate of Climate at the Institute of Security Studies. So it's a big focus, and we'll talk about that. Then you must have seen this in the news. Bosisiwe Nkubane, the former public protector, uttered what Parliament is calling unfounded utterances. And we will talk to Gabriel, we'll hear what Parliament has to say about those utterances of the EFF MP, and also get a little bit of analysis on that with the director of the International Race Relations. He's a legal expert there. Later on, South Africa is currently hosting its Africa Conference, commenced on Monday. 100 delegates from all over Africa and the Middle East are attending an all-important conference. We'll see brand communication experts exchange ideas. We'll find out what that's all about, along with TWA SA, big advertising brand. Then later on, we'll get a little bit more reaction on that 17 million people who've applied for the SASSA Social Relief of Distress grant. And later on, according to AfriForum, the civil rights organization unanimously requested the DA and the Freedom Front reconsider their role in the government of national unity if the Bela bill is implemented. We'll talk to AfriForum CEO Kali Creel and see why he disagrees with that Bela bill. That and more coming up.
The wait is finally over, and we can safely say that Tropica Island of Treasure is back to serve you some really great entertainment. Tune into S3 from the 28th of September to cheer on the 7 teams who will be vying to win a shared prize of 1 million rand, a brand new car each, and become the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure Season 11. Fancy 50,000 bucks? Predict the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure, and you might be sipping that cold, refreshing Tropica all the way to the bank. Follow at MyTropica and at SABC3 for more information. Channel your inner champion with Tropica Island of Treasure. Starts Saturday the 28th of September at 6:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3. Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their 3rd consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa. Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Let's talk about water for a little while. Gauteng heading for day 0, if you read the reports. Leading scientists are pegging the province's water crisis as a near-term climate change tipping point. Several other water scarcity hotspots countrywide, making it a national concern, but only in terms of economics, not only in terms of economics, but also the potential for conflict. Senior Research Associate at Climate at the Institute for Security Studies, Deshigan Naidu, joins me on the line now. Tell us more. Deshigan, thank you very much for joining us. Just how worried should we be about our water availability here?
Hello, John, and hello to the listeners. The short answer is very worried. What we're talking about with the climate change issue is what can take it over the edge, as tipping point implies, where you would have an extremely water-scarce Gauteng, and then the knock-on effects of that on the economy, on the social tapestry, on the environment, and the security risk is immense. There are solutions, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the history of water first. It's Joburg, famously the only major city not on a big river. Humankind works around where water is. And what you're saying is if water moves and doesn't come like it used to, then there's going to be issues.
That's the thing. The river that gave birth to Gauteng, of course, is the mining scene as opposed to water.
Right.
And people have been quite ingenious in the South African environment around making sure that water gets to Gauteng. So Gauteng is the major importer of water in the country. We get water from other parts of the country, like KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, but we also get water from international import, in particular Lesotho. And climate change is telling us that it's not only going to affect the local climate in Gauteng, it's going to affect exactly all of those other places as well. So if you have a dry up in Lesotho, the net result is a direct decrease in the availability of water in Gauteng. So it's a very connected system. The issue with Gauteng, of course, is that as a country, we have a huge dependency on this region for our economy. And in fact, it's 7% of the GDP of the continent as well. So it's also a continental issue.
You talk about things being connected. I'm just thinking the water from Lesotho flows into the Vaal, eventually flows into the Orange. There's those wine farmers out in Uppington that rely on that water. So if Gauteng is sucking all that water out, less water gets to Uppington, and so it's those smaller towns that are going to suffer downriver.
That's exactly right. And it's not just the South African operations that suffer. There are two big downstream countries that depend on that same river. It's Botswana and Namibia, who in turn will have huge pressure. So one of the tipping points in Botswana, for example, is the loss of its cattle herd. So this knock-on effect is going to be something that is really crucial for the entire region.
You say it affects the GDP. I mean, we know about livelihoods, but how would it affect the GDP?
Very directly. So our economy relies on the pivots of water availability and energy availability for virtually every aspect of the economy. So as soon as that is sucked dry and tips in the wrong direction, the knock-on effect on economic activity will be almost immediate. You'd have to close down operations, manufacturing operations, retail operations, services, industry, and that there will be a further economic downturn on the back of it. So one of the fundamental pillars that props up the economy is in fact the availability of a reasonable amount of water to make it run.
We saw it happening in Cape Town. It was dire down there. The city did a lot to try and rectify that. And down in the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, we've seen all these issues. It's across the country. Do we have security and intelligence to be able to make sure that there aren't issues when it comes to people fighting for water?
I think the case is being made that we need to have a much larger investment on both business intelligence as well as criminal intelligence, because there's a criminal component around this, and of course the security intelligence that we need to engage it. And the water systems have new upcoming threats over and above climate change. So as we rapidly move into the fourth industrial revolution and automate all of our systems with remote control and remote sensing, we also have the difficulty of dealing with cybersecurity, because it now becomes another vulnerability inside the system. So we really have to take an urgent and deep look at this and have the right kinds of reactions by way of policy, but more importantly by way of investment.
All right, Jessica, before we get there, the other issues. Sorry, I'm just thinking of troubles here. Not only is there not enough water, but the water that is out there is getting polluted because of all these industries and because of the pathogens that are being put in by a growing population.
It's exactly that. And, you know, one of the rescue points that is available for South Africa is the way it has adopted an attitude around climate change and the just transition, right? Where it demands, if you're going to make a low-carbon economy work, you actually have to revisit all of the fundamentals and make very big changes inside the system. If we manage to do that, we could, in fact, get ourselves on the right pathway, not only to mitigate the impacts of climate change, but actually prop up the fundamentals inside the system, like water security and energy security, in order to build the economy that we need. I mean, we're already in a precipitous place. We've seen service delivery protests all across the country, and this happens absolutely every year. We've seen how little it took for that to escalate into something like the July 2021 riot. We know how incendiary the situation actually can be. So our reactions have got to be really smart.
I've started not using my hose pipe. I use a watering can to water my little plants in my little garden. But I feel so helpless when I talk to you, and we're talking millions of litres of water. What can be done?
Look, the things that are currently at play are the right starts, and we definitely need them. So the strategy of the National Water Ministry around moving to deal with the issues of unaccounted for water, to deal with the issues of water quality, to do the maintenance of infrastructure. And we've all been subject in Gauteng to the shutdowns while Randwater is trying to rectify the system. There are moves in the right direction. We just need to accelerate that a lot more and organize for us to be able to deal with the systems in a way that has a scaled effect as opposed to an incremental effect. Because what climate change is doing is it's not offering us incremental changes, it's offering scaled, stepwise changes, as we're witnessing with big floods in KwaZulu-Natal now almost every year, and the drought events that are happening around the country. And we've got to have a similar kind of response. The second part of that is that we're going to have a really robust disaster management system in the country. And it's not only about early warnings. it also has to be about organized response. You know, we would need, for example, the equivalent of the National Guard in the U.S. When you have a climate-related disaster or any other disaster, you can have an immediate response around how to engage that issue, evacuate folk, rebuild systems. All of that comes as a package that really needs to be there.
And we're seeing that in the States, just how abysmal some of their support has been in this first world country with all the money, we're told. Just quickly, Dish, again, day zero is this day that's thrown around. I've seen dates that are quite nearby when people are saying this might be an issue. In your research, is this a 10-year thing? If we carry on as we are today, is this 10 years away, 20 years away, the next generation's issue?
Look, what we're doing and what the scientific community is doing is running models on this. And depending on the parameters of the changes in the system, it could be quite soon. You know, a day zero in Gauteng could be decades away. It could also happen in the next 5 years. Because if you have continuous El Nino years, say 3 in a sequence, and that has happened before, then you would be in very, very deep trouble. So we are subject to the vagaries of the environment right now. And this is why we've got to have very good immediate responses and a really, really good plan around organizing for our long-term investments inside this domain.
Desigan Naidu is a Senior Research Associate for Climate at the Institute for Security Studies.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Let's talk also a little bit about being a male nurse. And I wonder, that must be a very unique experience because firstly, when we think nurses, you know, we don't really think male nurses have the same kind of nurturing.
I will tell you and be honest with you, no guy said, when I finish school, I want to do nursing.
Yeah.
There was no guy who said that. All we said engineering, all those courses. Being a male nurse, I will tell you, me, I was recognized by my late grandmother. He said, when you end this destination, you'll be helping people at hospitals. So, you know, for me, nurses, they cherish these things. But only to find out now, after all the struggle, I found myself in nursing.
Sakile is a nurse at Bara Hospital.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Congratulations to the lucky winners who've already walked away with their share of 50,000 Rand from One Life. You still have one more chance to win 15,000 Rand tomorrow on SAFM. All you have to do is enter on the SAFM website and you could be a lucky winner to get a call to play on the morning brief. Plus, you can boost your 15,000 Rand winnings with an additional 2,000 Rand when you opt in for an obligation-free One Life life cover quote. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Voice note time, 0614 104 107.
Afternoon, John. You know, John, ANC government shot itself in the foot by issuing work permits to the outsiders. The employers who are white in majority took it as an advantage to sideline South Africans to destroy ANC. They knew if they don't employ South Africans, the South Africans will go against the ANC and will never vote for ANC. That's why you saw ANC lost very, very badly 2024 elections, because the employers are sabotaging them by not employing the South Africans. Now you hear this official is talking about the fraud disaster. People are not waking. They are not waking. ANC must wake up. Lisa from Brixton.
Hi, John. Speaking to Manzini from Kukuletu. And please ask your guest, man, what's going on with the people that were still waiting for the dates for the SRT since 2021? I'm still waiting for the paid date. You see, for my SRT. They sent me a link. I did a link of the facial. I've done the banking details. I've done everything they wanted. I did, but I'm still waiting for a date. Please, man, can you please assist?
Thanks for your voice notes. We'll take more a little while. 0614 104 107, because we're going to move to our next story now. Parliament has criticised what they call the unfounded utterances by former public protector, currently EFF MP Busisiwe Mkhwebane, about the parliamentary staff and legal advisors. Let's hear what Parliament had to say.
Parliament has noted with dismay the unfounded utterances by Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, which sought to impugn the integrity of the staff members of Parliament, particularly that of the Chief Legal Advisor, as well as the Parliamentary Legal Advisor. There is no merit at all to the attack leveled against these parliamentary staff, as they have over the years served Parliament with diligence and integrity and have always acted in the interest of the people of South Africa. The unwarranted attack on these officials, as well as the racial slurs used by Advocate Mkhwebane, are unfortunate, particularly in a democratic society like ours, where human dignity ought to be protected and respected. As a member of Parliament and a public representative who owes allegiance to our Constitution, Advocate Mkhwebane has a responsibility to promote and protect the values enshrined in the Constitution, as they are a cornerstone of our democracy. She has correctly approached the court to express her dissatisfaction with the outcome of the Section 194 committee, and as such, the court has expressed itself by striking the matter from the court roll. Parliament will reiterate its commitment of building an unracial, non-sexist and democratic South Africa.
All right, well, let's get a little bit more with Gabriel Krause, Executive Director of International Relations Legal, joins us now. Gabriel, what do you make of this? I see the DA's also got on the bandwagon now. She implicated prominent persons predominantly of Indian ethnicity. What do you make of this whole situation?
Yeah, I think it's a shame to criticize people on the basis of their race. Former Public Protector MP Mkhwebane raised the names the late Pravin Gordhan, Bawa, Adhikari, Hassan Ibrahim, Ivan Pillay, Fatma Ibrahim, and Judge Ponan, and said that their attitude they were all biased against her, and mentions they're all of Indian descent. And positioned themselves, she says, as her persecutors. I think that it's shameful. The Institute of Race Relations has commissioned surveys off and on over the last 10 years. And one of the key questions that get asked is, have you personally experienced any form of racism in the last 5 years? And sadly, in the last couple of years, the numbers have been going up. And they've been going up particularly in racial minorities, colored, white, and Indian, and particularly sharply amongst Indians. And I think that it kind of shouldn't be too much of a surprise that Indian South Africans get picked on, if anyone is going to be picked on, because it's the smallest minority, and so in a kind of raw numbers sense, the most vulnerable. And also, of the 4 race groups, per capita the second wealthiest. And so the kind of idea that it's okay to target someone on the basis of their race, if their race group is per capita relatively wealthy, kind of leaves Indians a bit exposed. Mkhwebane has leaned into this heavily in this moment of her own failure in the court application, and it's to her discredit. And I think that the important takeaway, though, is that most South Africans are against this. The same surveys show that most South Africans really don't want this kind of thing. They see how politicians play these tricks, and they don't want it. And I think that it's a really exciting development that Parliament, for once, is speaking out, doing the right thing, condemning these kinds of racial slurs, and defending its legal advisors, its public servants. That hasn't been happening in the past. Even in the last few years, it's hard to imagine. It is happening now, and that's a really welcome development.
We see it as a last resort on social media. When you're having a relatively good debate, somebody starts losing, then they bring up the skin color, they call you racist. It's almost the loser's last gasp attempt at something here.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, obviously, let's not kid anyone. You know, there are instances of real racial discrimination, but that excuse, that last resort for someone who's clearly losing an argument, is an attempt to kind of mix the good with the bad, to mix real cases of victimhood with the fake fabrications, and it worked. And it probably will continue to work in some corners for some time, but it's working less and less because people see through it because it's been so overdone. And because people want to get serious about serious issues like Mkhwebane's own failure to do her duty as public protector, like her own inability to put together even the most basic kind of requirements in a court application, starting with, in this case, the reason she lost is she didn't even file the application under the right name. She sort of pretended that she was still the public protector when she wasn't. And so the court dismissed her appeal against that. When people make mistakes, they can't hide behind fake allegations of racism in the way that they could in the past. And again, I'm trying to emphasize that good news part of the story, because really, if this country is going to continue turning the corner, it's going to have to be because we continue to build on that kind of success of just not falling for this nonsense.
Yeah, the problem is that it's the boy that cried wolf. So when there are real racism issues, you goes, wow, somebody's just playing the race card again.
Absolutely. That's why we've got to take it on a case-by-case basis. All South Africans have to keep their wits about them. And, in this instance, why do we know that she's just playing the race card in a foolish way? Well, because we know it's very much clear in the public record what has been going on. And what's been going on is that Advocate Mkhwebane, from the moment she was sworn in, made unconstitutional remarks trying to call for the nationalization of the Reserve Bank from the position of the Public Protector's Office in violation of the Constitution. And ever since then, the DA, they didn't jump on the bandwagon. They started the parliamentary process to call for her impeachment. It took years. Eventually it was concluded. The president suspended her. Then he removed her. And ever since then, she's been trying to push back and fight back and get back some money, claw back some of that. But the court, I read this court judgment. It's very clear. It's not ambiguous what's happened here, and it has nothing to do with her race and everything to do with her conduct.
All right, Gabriel, we're going to leave it there, unfortunately. Gabriel Krause is Executive Director for the Institute of Race Relations Legal. 29 minutes to 5.
A very good afternoon. With the news headlines this hour, ke Modupi Makgalemele. The Constitutional Court has set a date in the EFF's bid to challenge the National Assembly's 13 December 2022 decision not to adopt the Section 89 Independent Panel Report into Phalaphala. Electricity Minister Khosiyan Sulamokgopa says he's confident that the government will provide relief around the proposed electricity tariff hikes. And Israel has issued a new warning to residents in more than 20 towns and villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate as it intensifies its attacks on Hezbollah. And those are your headlines. A full news update coming up 5 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, road closures throughout the central Sandton area until Monday for the Red Bull F1 showrun event, which takes place on Sunday, the 6th of October. The R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a stationary truck reported before the R23 Benoni exit. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons, and the N1 northbound in Midrand is queuing towards New Road. In KZN, the N3 outbound has a weekend closure with no access from the N3 outbound to the N2 northbound at Spaghetti Junction from 2 p.m. Saturday until 2 a.m. Monday, and this will continue every weekend until the 2nd of November. On the N3 westbound, there's a crash reported at the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, causing heavy delays. In Cape Town, some advanced warning for you this weekend. The Navy Festival returns to Simonstown from Friday until Sunday. Motorists can expect heavy traffic delays in the area. Gilberson Drive in Para has a crash at Voortrekker Road, and Brighton Road in Kraaifontein is slow moving at the N1 highway. With your traffic updates, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Afternoon again. Tumi, what are we focusing on today? Women's cricket.
It's women's cricket. And let's start things off there at the ICC Women's T20 World Cup, where Pakistan is taking on Sri Lanka. And Pakistan is currently batting first. They're sitting 46 for 3 after 8 overs. Remember that the Proteas women kick off their World Cup campaign tomorrow. And they're going up against the West Indies. And I think Pakistan just lost a wicket. Is it a wicket? No. Okay,
no,
so it's not a wicket as yet.
Should I, John presenter to TV umpire? Can I see side?
But still staying with cricket South Africa and Proteas main spinner Tabraiz Shamsi today jointly announced that the 34-year-old has decided to opt out of his national contract effective immediately. Now, the move will allow Shamsi, who has played 51 one-day internationals and 70 T20 international, greater flexibility to participate in various leagues around the world while maintaining his availability to represent South Africa across both white ball formats. Now, Cricket South Africa say that they respect his decision and remain confident in his continued dedication to South African cricket. Furthermore, the national body look forward to his future contributions to the Proteas and Titans. In football, former Orlando Pirates player Kamal Said says that while he loves his old team, he would love to see Stellenbosch FC lift the MTN 8 trophy for non-football reasons. The Buccaneers and Stellies will go toe-to-toe in the final of the competition on Saturday in Durban, with the black and white challenging for their third title in a row. The Matroosfontein-born football midfielder says that it would do a world of good to the young ones in the Western Cape, especially off the field, if Stellenbosch was to lift the trophy.
I'm going to support Stellenbosch because we need teams to win trophies in Cape Town. Also, those guys are the role models for the next generation coming through. And that is the most, because we have too little role models in sport. The role models is mostly where we don't need them or want them. You know what I mean? So.
Elsewhere, France captain Kylian Mbappe has been left out of his team's UEFA Nations League matches this month. The Real Madrid star returned from a short spell on the sidelines with a thigh injury. However, he will not play against Israel and Belgium. To all Mbappe to rest and work on his fitness. Then in rugby, the Springboks are reportedly organising a global media event before the World Champions November Test, where they will offer unprecedented access to 28 players. According to Rugby Confidential in the UK's Daily Mail, SA Rugby has enlisted sports marketing giant Wasserman to boost their international appeal, particularly in lucrative markets like the US and Asia. Now, the All Blacks previously capitalized on their brand between 2011 and 2015, gaining attention in these regions aided by the ella of the haka. Now, the Boks reportedly want to replicate the success, focusing on the inspiring stories of their athletes who've risen from adversity. And with Wasserman on board, their involvement aims to grow South African rugby's international brand by capitalizing on the Boks status as back-to-back world champions. Can't you just wait to see the Springboks very big? Not that they're not big already, but in the US and in Asia. It'll be interesting to see how that brand is going to grow.
I was going to say, it's rugby. Do you think, we played in, when I say we, I mean the Springboks played in the US, when was it, Chicago or something recently? Full stadium. Mm-hmm. We've got South Africans everywhere. I think it's a great idea.
Do you think the Springboks are only supported by South Africans though? With so many inspiring stories within the national team.
I was watching a great video the other day. Up until like 6 months ago, the Springboks were always the bad boys of rugby. They were the ones, they were the, and you see it all the time in international media. They were the dirty players. They were the rough ones. They were the naughty players. They were the team everybody loved to hate. Mm-hmm. Now it's changing. And I think it's for the things you're saying, those inspirational stories. Yeah. Siya Kolisi's captaincy. It's just they're just really good guys at the moment.
They're like heroes.
Yeah, and it's rubbing off across the globe, which is great.
Absolutely. Well, anything's off with tennis. Coco Gauff beat Yuval Stadusteva in 3 sets to reach the China Open semi-finals. Gauff claimed a 2-6, 6-2 and 6-2 win, and she next faces Paula Badosa. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Jimmy, thank you very much. Plenty more sport here on SAFM. Don't forget, I think Brian Mofokeng has sport for you later on as well this evening right here on SAFM. So stay close. 22 minutes to 5. We're talking business next.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN8 final. Wafa Wafa! Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
It's time to crown Miss World South Africa 2024. Tune into S3 this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8 p.m. as Miss World South Africa 2024 takes center stage on S3. This year's pageant will be taking place live at the Sun City Super Bowl with tickets available at Quicket. Channel your inner star with the 2024 Miss World South Africa finale this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Paswane Mbrahlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Paswane, what's been happening on the markets today? I see Baldwin had a business update today.
Afternoon, John. Yeah, Bowen did come up with an update. It's for their first half of the year. The guys are just notifying the market that, hey, their profits as per headline earnings per share will be at least down by 54%. And this is at the back of a challenging business environment. As the residential property market suffered from the high interest rates that are there, which has dampened the general demand and led them to recognize only 640 apartments from the 834 previously. However, the ability to then focus on being more conservative on the cost front, decreasing it, and having to focus on the annuity business helped to offset these pressures on their profitability. But the guys remain optimistic going forward with the rate cuts, and especially with having to look at the strong forward sales that are above 700. It reflects that the guys are optimistic about their second half. And when we look into the market in general, we're looking at a market where the big signal that has taken investors is that central bankers are still having an impact in the forex market. I mean, we've seen the dollar hitting a one-year high at the back of Japan's new PM telling the BOJ not to hike rates, depreciating the yen. The euro depreciated also in the same direction as the October cuts. Bets increased significantly. In the UK, Governor Bailey also indicated that he's going to be more aggressive on the rate cuts. All this put together is putting the dollar very up, yields coming up, equities coming down, offering buying opportunity ahead of the big job numbers coming in tomorrow. But outside these developments, more cautionary and helping the dollar to remain elevated was the Middle East development. We've seen that it's been filtering through that oil price. It's up over 3%, around $77 a barrel, becoming a very tradable level, and that's why we're seeing our energy stocks doing so well today. Meanwhile, gold is down at 2,650 but remains bullish. Platinum at 985. General equities, when we see in the US, they've opened mixed. Dow down 0.4, Nasdaq, S&P down 0.2. Europe, FTSE was flat. The DAX was down 0.6, CAC down 1%. Middle East tension took too much of a toll in Europe. While locally, we are just following the same sentiment as the JC was down 0.6, as our resource sector was down 1%, financials down 0.8, industrials were down 0.5%. And looking into the current space with a stronger dollar, gold prices that have eased, oil prices that have risen significantly, this put pressures on the rand. Rand against the dollar is sitting at 17.52, depreciating by 1%. Rand against the euro is at 19.30, and rand against the pound 22.93.
Paswane Mbrahlele, thank you very much. Senior Accounts Manager at Makwe Fund Managers.
Here, there, and everywhere.
SAFM 106.6 FM in King Williamstown.
We're going to play voice notes in a second, but there's a story that broke this afternoon. I don't know if you saw it. If you did, hopefully you have an opinion on this. Former Steinhoff Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, Andries Lagrange, pleaded guilty to fraud amounting to 376,649,872 rand. He's pleaded guilty. He's agreed to testify for the state for further prosecutions. In exchange for that, he gets 5 years behind bars. Let me say that number again. 376,649,872 rand. Listen closely. He got 5 years behind bars. Now, I understand it's a plea deal, and he will get other big boys from Steinhoff and hopefully have them face time in jail and face their time in court. But it makes no sense. 5 years behind bars for that number. Let's take some of your voice notes. 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, John. I just wanted to ask you, I guess, if my wife, she's not working. I am working. You know, I'm depositing money every month on a card. Does that mean automatically she don't qualify for that relief grant? Yeah, if you can ask your guest. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to you, John. John, as a vulnerable person who's living with disabilities, I'm getting 2,750 each and every month as a disabled grant. You know, so if there are people who are enabled, who are still applying for 370. Yeah, it definitely shows that our country is still going through a lot, especially black people. No, black people are suffering in this country. You know, as a disabled person, I'm getting 2,750, and there's someone out there who's still applying for 370. No, it's very sad. No, it's very sad for black people, John.
Good afternoon, Brajon. Brajon, you see, the spokesperson of SASSA should have spoke about those who qualify and who deserve that 370. Those ones who are trying to defraud the government, they have figured it out. Let them not give them the money. Don't come here and try to talk about those who don't qualify. You have got systems in place, we already know that. Talk about those who qualify. When are they going to get the 370? Finish in club.
Well, I appreciate the activism of Jay Naidu. I think everything he's saying is correct. It's just that the fundamental problems is that we lack a political alternative. So, and that goes down to the left in this country, of whom he was a part of, not forming any proper structures. And so the hijacking of the ANC was never really a hijacking. It was just that the left never took the opportunities to unite and create an actual Labour Party that would seek out these interests and be able to and have a platform for people to fight in, because now we all scattered all over the place. And that's the real political problem. So unless he can assist to make a new political party and get the old leftists back together, we're going to have a lot of trouble still.
John, this is Baggy in Cape Town. Could you kindly ask this DA representative who is not so happy about the blue lights and what, to just answer the question in simpler terms, please, and leave these bombastic words. He must just leave speaking bombastic words, just simply answer the question, without utilizing or use of figure of speech, please, man. Can't he just answer straight so that you don't waste time in terms of asking, what do you mean by this, Please, some of us are not really clued up about what is this thing that he speaks about, exchange of trade, what and this and that. Can he just get straight to the answer of the question and we move on to the next question, please? Back in Cape Town.
My favorite is when you talk to somebody and they try to sound very clever by saying, it's like, no, it was as stated in section 23, clause 1b. Obviously, John, you will know that. It's like, who knows that stuff? Nobody knows that. Just tell us. In the rule book, it says. You don't have to give me the numbers and the dates and all those kind of things. Just say, in the rule book, it states that. If you have to reference the rule book. All right, I think we got time for one more voice note. I forgot which one we played last. Let's play this one.
Hello, John. Let me tell you about the hypocrisy of the Democratic Alliance. The city of Joburg never had these bodyguards and blue lights. I remember very well. Only the mayor had a driver. And Hammond took the mayorship under the DA. And Wonkomuntu, they started feeling unsafe. And they bought a string of BMWs. And they were all having bodyguards under the DA leadership. That's how I know DA will never leave the GNU, because they love nice and shiny things. Thanks.
Good afternoon, SAFM. It's Yanisa Pong and Krugerstop. I think Busisiwe Mkhwebane must accept that she failed to do her job because of the politics. That is why Julius Malema took her to parliament, because of the politics. He saw that that woman likes the politics. So she was not fit for that office of public protector. She must accept that.
Good afternoon, John. John, it's Lennon here. John, I am not surprised by about the statement from Busisiwe Mkhwebane in her own defense. People who have been represented by Dalimpofu and people from the benches of EFF, same as their president, Julius Malema, and people from MK. What do we expect from all of those people? They have the same sentiments as Busisiwe Mkhwebane when they look at other issues, when they can't get what they want. They'll go as to dead farmers. We know. So for me, it's not a surprise when she brought up those kind of allegations. Lennon.
If you want to share your voice notes, let's pause that. If you want to share your voice notes, you can send them on 0614 104 107, and you can give us a call as well. Let's chat 086 000 2032.
Becoming Elizabeth is the fascinating story of the early life of England's most iconic queen. With no clear heir, the death of King Henry VIII sets into motion a dangerous scramble for power. Elizabeth's fascinating and factual journey to secure the crown is filled with scheming, betrayal, and illicit relationships that threaten to bring forth her demise. At a time in which every man or woman of the court is on the wheel of fortune, which may take them to a position of great power one moment, or the executioner's block the next. Channel your inner royalty with Becoming Elizabeth, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3. Four dynamic design duos reimagine and reinvent 4 apartments in a century-old building nestled in the vibrant suburb of Sea Point, Cape Town. Armed with creativity, determination, and a limited budget, the duos fight against the clock to transform this grand old dame into a contemporary masterpiece, all under the critical eyes of an expert judging panel. The winning duo will claim a grand prize of 300,000 Rand, with an additional 100,000 Rand going to the fan favorite team, as voted by viewers. Channel your inner wow with My Design Rules, Sundays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Jon Gericke on SAFM.
7 minutes to 5, TBWA South Africa hosting its Africa conference commenced on Monday. More than 100 delegates from all over Africa and the Middle East are attending an important conference that'll see brand communication experts exchange ideas on numerous topics. The theme for this year is Here We Are. TBWA SA's Graham Cruikshanks joins me on the line to talk about the significance of the conference, some of the important topics. Graham, good evening or good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for joining us. Here we are. What do you mean?
Good afternoon. Great to be here. Here we are. The theme is really about us focusing, doubling down on what it is across the continent to be from the various markets that we represent. So it's very much a sort of a thought around where we get our strength, where we get our motivation, our inspiration. It's from where we are, and here. Wherever that may be across the continent is where we become whatever we need to become, and really about how do we inspire each other? How do we take inspiration from our continent and put that into the work that we do, put that into the advertising that we want to create, and how to connect with audiences across the continent.
And across the globe, a couple of days ago, we were talking to a young lady who's taking African heritage and shedding it out to the world. Is the world accepting now of African culture and wanting more of that?
I think the world is really embracing African culture. I think there's incredible evidence of that. I mean, I think you don't have to look much further than the African music industry to see how Afrobeat, Amapiano is starting to really almost drive a sort of a global culture in many ways. So yes, I think that's becoming a real phenomenon, and we're wanting to see a great deal more of that. I think we often diminish it to some extent when we think about our own sort of cultural influences and that type of thing. And we spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks talking about how do we sort of amplify our culture, because that's really, firstly, how you connect locally, but also when you think about sort of putting work on a world stage, it's such a point of difference. It's something that others haven't really outside of our borders haven't really seen, haven't really experienced, and it becomes extremely compelling and very unique.
How do you, I'm just thinking of some of the great adverts and branding over the years. David Kramer doing his thing for the Foxy bus, the Castle Lager, Springbok jersey is a big thing. How do you translate that to an international market?
Well, I think that you've got to be thinking, funny enough, I mean, there's principles, international principles, and that's what we sort of want to be looking at TBWA, but, is applying sort of global principles, because they tend to be best practice, but ultimately you've got to connect at a local level. You've got to be building on local culture, identifying things within local communities that resonate. And I mean, those examples that you gave all have, in their own way, a connection with a community or people, in those ones specifically in South Africa. But I think each piece of advertising needs to look at who that audience is and how do you kind of get under the skin there? How do you kind of find out what really moves and motivates? And often that sits within a clean and clear understanding of our culture, right? And I don't mean sort of traditional culture necessarily, but modern culture as well. And really kind of look at how do we kind of just find something special, unique within that, and then represent that in a way associated with a product or a way we want people to sort of think or start to behave, and you present that story to people, and it, when you get that right, it's beautiful, because people respond in a way that we've seen in so many sort of ad favorites over the time.
And as for the continent, everybody walking in the same direction?
No, I suppose not entirely. And look, walking different speeds, perhaps walking in different ways, perhaps. But the sort of overarching principles of how to connect and what does connect tend to be similar. There's obviously sort of cultural nuances and levels of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable in certain countries, and certain countries have much more sort of hard and fast rules about things. So it's hugely important to understand what those are, and that's what why it's so important to have local teams, local agencies in local countries, and that's very much what the TBWA network is all about, is having really good partners in those countries. So when global brands come to you and say, well, we need to deploy work across various markets, it's not always about creating a sort of a global spray and pray. It's or something that is just simply built here and then used everywhere. It's really firstly looking to create something that can work if it needs to be a piece of work that does work across all countries. But more importantly, what is it? How does it adapt? How does it need to kind of evolve a little bit and be nuanced in certain markets?
To me, our sports reporter was just talking about the Boks going and playing overseas and expanding that brand. That would be a great example of that. The Springboks that you and I see when we watch on a Saturday is very different from what an American might see.
Correct, and the way that we rally support around a brand like that in South Africa is, there will be one way to do that, and we've seen lots of examples of how successful that's been. But if you were to try and make that brand popular in America, just as using your example, you would want to be tapping into a variety of different things. I mean, things like the principles of that brand and what the players stand for. That's the kind of thing that would probably connect. Whereas being just purely South African and tapping into the emotion of what that means and what a successful Springbok team means for us would perhaps not be the way to do that in America, just using that analogy a bit further.
And quickly, Graham, at the end of this conference, what are you hoping to get out of it?
Well, I think what we're really hoping is to inspire everybody again about what it means to be part of our network, what it means to be part of TBWA, the principles and philosophies that we support. So we kind of sign everybody up to that. But also, the new opportunities around, AI, for example, and how that's going to be impacting our business, how that'll help us sort of connect more, be better, empower, capabilities that already exist, that kind of thing. So really, wanting everybody sort of marching out, waving the flag very highly, feeling very proud and confident about, attracting new business, building our client base, and creating iconic work.
Graham Cruikshanks is the Director of Africa Operations at TBWA. Thanks very much. It's 1 minute past 5. Greg Kos has your news here on SAFM.
Thank you, John. In this news update, date set for Concord hearing on Pala Pala and reward over Northwest bus torching. Good day to you. The Constitutional Court has set a date in the EFF's bid to challenge the National Assembly's 2022 decision to not adopt the Section 89 independent panel report into Pala Pala. This as the EFF contends that Parliament acted irrationally by not referring it to the impeachment committee. The party wants the decision to be declared irrational and unlawful. The matter, which is opposed by President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Speaker of the National Assembly, will be heard on Tuesday, November 26. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Kgotsenso Ramokgopa, says he's confident that government will provide relief around the proposed electricity tariff hikes. He was delivering the keynote address at Africa's premier wind energy event in Cape Town.
I am confident where I am that the issues around the tariff we can provide some degree of relief. But we are not going to soil the NERSA process. So NERSA is going to run its process. I will make that submission as a minister through that process.
Police are offering a reward of up to 50,000 rand for anyone who has information that could lead to the arrest and successful prosecution of the alleged perpetrators responsible for fires at 2 Bojanala bus depots in Rustenburg in the northwest. Police spokesperson Adele Myberg says 23 buses were set on fire with an estimated value of 69 million rand.
The Provincial Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Silikwina, urged the community to come forward with information that will ensure that these ruthless criminals whose actions are hampering the transportation of school children and elderly persons are brought to book Anyone with information is requested to contact the investigating officer, Captain Johannes Moncho, cell phone number 076 834 3531. You can also contact the South African Police Service Crime Stop on number 08600 10111.
E-hailing drivers in Gauteng say they fear for their lives due to the increasing number of robberies and attacks. This follows the killing of driver Nguqoko Gaza, who was shot and killed in Johannesburg, allegedly by a passenger he was transporting. Fellow driver Sibusisi Ndlovu was speaking at Gaza's memorial service in Berea.
Each and every day we are in a situation whereby we are working as Uber drivers. So the problem is we're being attacked each and every day. So we don't know where there is a hotspot or there is no hotspot, because any time it's tea time. Anything can happen. Like what happened here. So someone can request you, and then you tell yourself that I'm just going to pick up someone, and then you find out that the people, those person are not the riders. They are here to take something from you.
Transport Minister Barbara Creasy says the damaged fuel tanker berth at the Port of Elizabeth will be fixed by December at the latest. Fixing the fuel tanker berth in Port Elizabeth is estimated at 20 million rand. Creasy says the damage has affected residents of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro as petrol prices increased in the area, while the rest of the country enjoyed petrol price drops.
Transnet's head office is putting lots of pressure that we should try to conclude by the end of November. And I think the reason that we want to conclude is because we're very well aware of the negative impact that this damage is having on those who are living in this area, particularly the concerns that have been raised with regard to the fuel price.
Further afield, Israel's issued a new warning to residents in more than 20 towns and villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate as it intensifies its attacks on Hezbollah. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen has more.
Israel is scoring tactical victories. It's done massive damage, for example, to Hezbollah. But the question is, do Israel's tactical victories translate into strategic gains? And there's this, I think, not convincing idea of escalate to de-escalate, which is essentially that you hit your enemies as hard as you can and they'll be coerced into pulling back and ceasing fire. And there isn't evidence that that is actually happening.
The top story, the Concourt has set a date in the EFF's bid to challenge the National Assembly's decision to not adopt the Section 89 independent panel report into Pala Pala. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoos.
In sports this hour, Bruce confirms that Dao asked to be excused from Bafana squad and Shamsi opts out of national contract. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Greyston Drive westbound in Sandton has a crash reported at Daisy Street, the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards Samrand Road, and the N4 Witbank Highway westbound in Pretoria has delays towards the N1 highway. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a crash at the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, the M7 westbound queuing towards the Bellville Road exit, and the R102 eastbound is slow-moving near Mount Moriah Drive. In Cape Town, Victoria Road both ways slow-moving through Camps Bay, Wetton Road is queuing through the Wynberg area, and Victoria Road outbound is slow-moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
You are listening to Jon Gericke on SAFM.
Coming up in a moment, we're going to talk to the Deputy Head of Policy at Free Market Foundation about the story we covered earlier, and you responded to quite vehemently, quite a lot, about the SASSA grant. 17 million people applying for the 370 Rand a month social relief of distress grant. A couple of points that you brought up, I will bring up with the Head of Policy at Free Market Foundation. One of those will be, is 370 Rand enough? Who is applying? I'll see if they can answer some of the technical questions. What was that one about? If I'm donating money into their account, do they lose the opportunity? Also about the fraud. What kind of protection is there with the fraud? We did hear a little bit earlier on from from our guest. I'm trying to find out who was my guest a little bit earlier, and they were saying that it's Paseka Lesatsi, a spokesperson for SASSA. They were saying that it's very quick We can get through those 17 million. We can work out the fraud. But more and more we hear about people it's been delayed. What was the one message from 2021? So we're going to get an update on that. And then we'll talk to Kali Creel. He's the CEO of AfriForum. The headline says that they are pleading with the DA, Freedom Front Plus, to leave the GNU if the Bella Bill remains implemented. They've requested that they leave the government of national unity if the Bella Bill remains implemented. They seem to have one issue, and that's the language issue. There are a number of things in the Bella Bill. We'll talk about that, including homeschooling, compulsory schooling, admission policies, governing bodies. But I think they have a problem, the AfriForum, with the language policy in the school and how much or how little control school governing bodies will have over the schools. The Bella Bill seeking to limit that power. But we'll talk to Kali Creel and we'll get an update on what he thinks about that. And in our winning feature, a new mural has been unveiled at the Mall of Africa to honor Dr. Esther Mahlangu. And we'll find out more about that with the CEO of Attack, Jackie van Niekerk, who knows plenty about the mural and what the history is. We look forward to talking to her about that. It's 10 minutes past 5.
Becoming Elizabeth is the fascinating story of the early life of England's most iconic queen. With no clear heir, the death of King Henry VIII sets into motion a dangerous scramble for power. Elizabeth's fascinating and factual journey to secure the crown is filled with scheming, betrayal, and illicit relationships that threaten to bring forth her demise. At a time in which every man or woman of the court is on the wheel of fortune, which may take them to a position of great power one moment, or the executioner's block the next. Channel your inner royalty with Becoming Elizabeth. Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3. Need a loan? Pay for what you need when you need it with a personal loan from Nedbank. And if you open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account, you can enjoy 200 Rand cashback every month for the duration of your loan. That's 200 Rand every month to buy extra groceries or save for a rainy day. Visit nedbank.co.za and join the bank that's best for your loans. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. The wait is finally over, and we can safely say that Tropica Island of Treasure is back to serve you some really great entertainment. Tune into S3 from the 28th of September to cheer on the 7 teams who will be vying to win a shared prize of 1 million Rand, a brand new car each, and become the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure Season 11. Fancy 50,000 bucks? Predict the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure and you might be sipping that cold, refreshing Tropica all the way to the bank. Follow at MyTropica and at SABC3 for more information. Channel your inner champion with Tropica Island of Treasure starts Saturday the 28th of September at 6:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Congratulations to the lucky winners who've walked away with their share of 50,000 Rand from One Life. You still have one more chance to win 15,000 Rand tomorrow on SAFM. All you need to do is enter on our webpage and you could be a lucky winner to get a call to play on the morning brief. Plus, you can boost your 15,000 Rand winnings with an additional 2,000 Rand when you opt in for an obligation-free One Life life cover quote. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
As always, phone lines are open and the WhatsApp lines are open. In case you don't know what those are, let me tell you. I'll tell you slowly. Phone line 086 000 2032. It's been a bit quiet today, so we'll have an opportunity to chat. 086 000 2032. And the voice note number is 0614 104 107. Now, more than 17 million, we spoke about this earlier, 17 million people have applied for the 370 Rand a month Social Relief of Distress grant in September of 24, the SRD. That's according to the latest figures supplied by SASSA, an increase of more than 3 million people since September 21, when 13.8 million people applied. Dr. Morne Malan is the Deputy Head of Policy at Free Market Foundation. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us. What does the increase in numbers mean? SASSA didn't really answer that when I asked them. Should we be worried?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, to state it briefly, I think maybe before I do that, just two important points. Well, firstly, we should just all acknowledge that this is an objectively bad situation, not just for the economy, but also for those involved. There's just no definition of human flourishing or prosperity in which such a complete dependence on the part of these recipients for these grants is desirable. And on the second point, regarding the economy, no, it's simply not affordable. We've already seen that all indications suggest that the taxpayer is overburdened at present. Currently, debt servicing costs are already the second largest item in the budget. It's about 20% of the entire budget. In fact, if you look at only debt servicing costs in the public sector wage bill or compensation for public sector employees, you've got around 50% of total spending. So those are both issues in and of themselves. But the fact of the matter is that there isn't really the fiscal scope for this sort of increase. And it's a tragedy both in terms of the human impact and the economic impact.
How much longer is this feasible?
Well, we've actually reached the point where we don't see how this is feasible for. We're talking about feasibility in terms of a year, maybe 2 years, but we're not talking about decades anymore, unless there is serious structural change on the part of government, both in terms of spending and in terms of economic growth. But beyond that, we also have to not just try to alleviate the symptoms, but we also have to actually treat the condition, and the condition remains unemployment in South Africa, where we're already one of, if not in fact the highest, we have the highest rate of unemployment on the planet, but we've also got one of the largest percentage of the unemployed that have been unemployed for extremely long term.
We spoke to let's talk about grants. There are studies that show that grants help. The president even saying that somebody started the business with their 370 rand at the time. Is this working to get people out of poverty?
Well, no, it's definitely not working to get people out of poverty. The only way in which people can sustainably be removed from poverty is to either go into employment or to begin a business in the informal sector or in the formal sector. But government has actually commissioned a study, and they have actually studied the impact of the SRD on employment, and they themselves found that whereas it did have a positive impact on balance during the pandemic, as long as it's being continued, it's actually tending towards either having no impact on employment or, in fact, having a negative impact. So you could have the perverse incentive of actually keeping people out of the employment market and actually just extending the reliance upon these kind of grants, which is not, it's not desirable from their perspective or feasible fiscally.
$370 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but for somebody who has nothing, it's at least something. Is that even a reasonable figure, or is this just something that's been put up to almost make the government look good?
Well, yes, at the moment it is very difficult to see what benefit other than well, I suppose making the government look good is one way of putting it, but it's difficult to see what else they're accomplishing by doing this. It's not really providing much in terms of relief. It seems to be having a negative overall impact on the economy. It's putting significant stress on the taxpayer and on growth in South Africa. So beyond just the superficial positive vibes that it might be creating vis-a-vis government, it is very difficult to see what the overall positive impact is. In fact, it seems quite negative.
A couple of issues that were raised from listeners through the afternoon, Doc, is that there's the fraud. 17 million people applied. How many of those are fraudulent? Does SASSA have the capabilities to be able to make sure that this is all done legitimately? Let's forget about the technicalities behind it or the reasons behind it. Can they make sure that the right people are getting these grants?
Unfortunately, we can only go based on what we've seen from government in the past, and they've demonstrated that they don't have the ability to do these sorts of things. We've seen with SASSA itself, large-scale corruption, and not even corruption, just inability to handle these sorts of complex systems, and on occasions also maybe a little bit of incompetence on the part of certain government officials. But this really does threaten to be a 10x version of the NISFA scandal unless we begin to put in proper measures. But fundamentally, the only way that we're going to address the issue is to have less people that are reliant on these types of grants and to get those people into the labour market.
Okay, Dr. Morne Milan, you're head of policy at Free Market Foundation. If I gave you 370 Rand times 13.8 million, which is more money than my brain can handle, what would you do?
If you gave me that money, I'd give it right back to the South African taxpayer. I think that at the moment we're an overtaxed society. I think that we get far better value just giving that money back into the economy. But of course, that also means that we'd have to, at least in the short term, get people off to stop the necessity of people receiving grants, and that really is the issue here.
Is that not the Reagan trickle-down policy?
The Reagan trickle-down policy?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, we're going to have to grow the economy to create opportunities. But whilst we do that, we can also lower the actual cost of employment in South Africa, and that's actually the kind of reform that we're advocating, is to address the issues within the labour market that's causing the structural unemployment and that's making it extremely risky and extremely expensive to employ people. And unless we fix that, unless we don't have 17 million people whose only source of income is grants, then it's really difficult to solve any of the other issues.
Yeah, the challenge is, Doc, I've got people right now who are running businesses, and I've got people right now who are relying on this grant. How do you make both of them happy?
Well, at the end of the day, the only way to solve it is to have less people relying on the grant. So the issue isn't really the grant in and of itself, although, as I mentioned, it does seem to be creating a bit of a moral hazard. On the one hand, it's making government look better. On the other hand, it seems to be disincentivizing people from getting employment. But yeah, the grant is really it's orthogonal to the actual issue.
Are people really choosing to not get a job in exchange for $370?
That does appear to be the case, yes. And again, that's not based on research that we've done from our side. As the Free Market Foundation, that's actually based on research that the government itself commissioned when it initially considered whether or not to extend the grant.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Dr. Morne Milan, thank you very much for raising some of those issues. Deputy Head of Policy at the Free Market Foundation. What do you make of that? It's worrying is the word I use. And I think Dr. Morne Milan and the SASSA spokesperson we spoke to earlier both agreed that 17 million people applying for 370 Rand. It's a problem. How do we fix it? Free Market Foundation says don't give it to the poor people. Give it to, in essence, the people who are paying the tax, the richer people. And let them use that to create employment. How does that work? Let me know if you know. 0614 104 107, or you can call us on 086 000 2032.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You are listening to Jon Gericke on SAFM.
Take a couple of voice notes. 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, John. I just want to say that Busisiwe Mkhwebane's entire woes dependent on a particular group of a particular descent. I think that's a nail in her political career, nail in the coffin of her political career. I think she doesn't know where to go, and aligning yourself with all the miscreants is only making it worse. And the arguments are never going to hold water or spice. Thanks.
We do have time after sport and business, after 5:30, to take more of your voice notes and your calls as well. Let's move on to the Bela Bill now. According to AfriForum CEO Kelly Creel, the civil rights organization unanimously requested that the DA and the Freedom Front Plus reconsider their role in the Government of National Unity if the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act remains implemented. The CEO joins us now, Kelly Creel. Thank you very much for joining us, Kelly. What is your issue with the Bela Bill?
Yes, thank you, John. Well, it's a major issue. This is not just a problem we have with just a bill. It's actually for us an issue of survival. The fact is that Afrikaans schools play a central role in the protection and advancement of Afrikaans cultural communities. So if you're going to allow people like Premier Lesofie and his supporters that are very anti-Afrikaans to have the last say with regard to Afrikaans schools, it would mean the end of those schools. And if you look at the 1994 transition, the promise was made to the Afrikaans community that as a cultural community you will be able to exist. And of course that was accepted, but this is a breaking of the 1994 agreement. And that's the worst thing any government can do, is to actually attack and have an act of aggression against any cultural community. And that is why we will fight this with everything we have.
Where in the Bela Bill does it say it's an attack against Afrikaans?
Well, if you're going to look and you listen to the NBC for Education in Gauteng, and you listen to the statements by Premier Lesofie, it's quite clear what their intentions are. They say there's no room for a single medium school, but of course they don't attack single medium English schools. The only schools that are attacked are Afrikaans schools, and we have seen what has happened in the past. We've seen it with regard to universities, we've seen it with regard to schools, because you don't have equal playing field. The English language is an international language that is strong. And every time you bring in both languages, as in the University of Pretoria, where I studied, as it happened at the University of the Free State, as happened in the Nelson Mandela University, as happened in places like the Hoërskool Uitzig, Hoërskool Acacia, there are numerous examples. When you go into this mode, the next step would be monolingual English institutions. And that is not unity in diversity, and that is an attack against cultural communities. We need more mother tongue education. That is why 80% of our schools are dysfunctional, because you have the majority of children in this country that have to write their matric exams in a language that is not their first language, and you won't solve that by attacking Afrikaans.
But that's the issue that they're raising, right? Is that there aren't enough first language schools, so therefore we will move people around based on where people are living. That those schools will become first language schools.
Well, that's not what the reality shows. All those schools, if you look at, for instance, let's take practical examples, the Hoërskool Uitzig. The demographic change was not to change towards first language English, and all these schools don't change towards, say, Sepedi schools or Zulu schools. It is made monolingual English schools. And of course, there is place for English schools, but you won't solve the education crisis that we have by attacking only 5% of the schools. Afrikaans schools are only 5% of the schools in the country. 80% of the schools in the country we see are dysfunctional. And you're not going to be able to solve that problem by attacking 5% of the schools. We need to make sure, rather, that we fix the 80%, and the way to do that is to make sure that we build on mother tongue education until the highest possible level.
See, Kelly Creel, every time you're speaking now, it's aren't you basing this all on assumptions? You've raised Premier Lesofie, but it's not his final decision. It comes down to the education department and the law. They can't do these things that you're implying.
No, that's exactly the problem that we have, is that the new act gives exactly, not even to, of course, to Premier Lesofie, but even lower, it gives the official, the head of the department in a province, one person. It gives that person, if you look at Article 6 or Article 5 of the act that is now going to be implemented, it says the head of department has the right to instruct a school to change its language policy. So, school governing bodies are the most essential or on grassroots level, the biggest form of democracy. And now you have one person. And if you look at that person, and you actually get shivers in your spine if you think that someone like MEC Cheluani can appoint the head of department, and that person can decide on every school in Gauteng. And you hear that same MEC literally counting down the days to say there are only so many days left before we can decide on a language policy. That is not what the government of national unity should be about. The government of national unity is to say we have a variety of views in the country, let's work together. AfriForum supports that, but what we are seeing at the moment is an effort by anti-Afrikaans ideologists to co-opt the DA, to co-opt the Freedom Front, simply to go ahead to implement policies that are anti-Afrikaans. And of course, that we can't stand for.
Just quickly, asking the DA and the Freedom Front Plus to reconsider their role in the GNU, wouldn't it be better for them to be there so that they can fight from within?
Yes, no, most definitely. That's why we support the government of national unity. But if you come to a point where the worst possible act that any government can have is being implemented by a government of national unity, then of course it goes against what it should do. So all it does now is give credibility to act that targets a community. We would rather than have to know that, okay, this is an unjust act that we can fight, and not an act that is given credibility by parties that many of our members vote for.
Kali Kriel is the AfriForum CEO with his views on the Bella Bill. Thank you very much. It's 5:30.
In the headlines at this half hour, the Concourt has set a date in the EFF's bid to challenge the National Assembly's decision to not adopt an independent panel report into Phala. SAS has seen a massive rise in the number of people applying for social grants, and the US CIA has launched a new drive to recruit informants in China, Iran and North Korea. There's a full update, as always, at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. A stationary vehicle reported that's in Kempton Park on the R21 southbound. That's just before the R23 Benoni exit. Also in Kempton Park, the R24 eastbound has a crash reported before Barbara Road exit. That's causing delays. And Grayston Drive westbound has a crash reported at Daisy Street in Sandton. In KwaZulu-Natal, the N3 westbound has a crash reported at the M13 Paradise Valley Interchange. That's causing heavy delays. The M4 southbound queuing traffic towards Athlone Drive, and then the N3 westbound is slow moving. That's towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Afternoon or evening now to me. Bafana. We got a squad.
Absolutely, and we're hearing from Bafana head coach Hugo Bruce, who has revealed that striker Percy Tau was omitted from the latest 23-man squad at his own request. The Al Ahly forward had initially been selected in the preliminary team to face Congo in back-to-back AFCON qualifiers this month before being dropped by Bruce on today. And Tau's future with the national team basically appears to be in doubt, and Bruce once again had to explain how he will approach this going forward.
I don't know. I see things happening. We don't have to, or I will repeat it, after AFCON they killed him. They really killed him, and it was not fair. It was not fair. Okay, he was not really the deciding player, or was not really fantastic, but he did his job. And therefore I didn't call him for Algeria. He told me, yes, coach, but this is part of the game. Yeah. This is part of the game, but it's in your mind. Don't tell me it's not in your mind. And then he came back against Zimbabwe and Nigeria, and again it started.
Well, the door remains open for Tau to be part of the group again, but Bruce says that he wants the player to add an extra gear when called up.
It's something that happened with him. Maybe he has to look for some other team to play where he will be more happy, maybe where there is less problems, and that we at least have again the old, well-known Percy Tau from a few years ago. And I hope it, really hope it, because we know the qualities of Percy, and he can help us a lot. But we have to be honest also. And when we evaluate his performances with national team, they have never been comparing with his qualities he has as a player. He can do more for the national team, I'm sure of it. But yeah, there was always something, and then it's not easy to have to do the big performances.
Earlier on, Bruce named his final 23-man squad to face Congo in the upcoming AFCON qualifiers. The squad is basically dominated by Mamelodi Sundowns players with 8 named, including Ikram Reyners. Orlando Pirates are also well represented with 6 players, including Sipho Chain, Tabiso Sesane, Relebohile Mofokeng, among others. And the squad also sees the return of experienced keeper Ronan Williams. Elsewhere, France captain Kylian Mbappe has been left out of his team's UEFA Nations League matches this month. The Real Madrid star returned from a short spell on the sidelines with a thigh injury. However, he will no longer play against Israel and Belgium to give Mbappe some rest and work on his fitness. In cricket, just to keep you up to date with what's happening at the T20 Women's World Cup, Sri Lanka need 117 runs to win at 5.85 runs per over. So Pakistan basically posted 116 all out. That is down there at the Women's World Cup. Meanwhile, Cricket South Africa and Proteas main spinner Tobias Shamsi today jointly announced that the 34-year-old has decided to opt out of his national contract effective immediately. The move will allow Shamsi, who has played 50 one-day internationals and 70 T20 internationals, greater flexibility to participate in various leagues around the world while maintaining his availability to represent South Africa across both the wide ball formats. Now, moving on to rugby, Springbok women's scrum half Taylor Kinsey says that she is expecting a physical but entertaining clash when they face Australia at the DHL Stadium on Saturday. The Boks will be chasing their second win in the competition, coming off the back of a 31-24 win over Japan last weekend. And Kinsey says that they are looking forward to grinding out a win against a team that has a similar style of play. In motorsport, champion leader Jorge Martin has warned of an unpredictable conditions at this weekend's Japan MotoGP as he looks to increase his lead over nearest challenger Francesco Bagnaia. Now, Martin won last week's Indonesia MotoGP to take a 21-point lead over Italy's defending champion Bagnaia, who finished third in Mandalika track, then the result leaves Martin and Banyaya locked in a virtual two-way battle for the title with 5 races remaining starting this weekend. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. Ke nna Tumeng Kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Thank you, Jimmy. Sorry, now it's my turn to not have a mic on. More sports coming up at a little bit later on the show. I think Brian Moffat King is presenting sports here on SAFM because Michael's away. So stay close. More sport, plenty here on SAFM.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma or Pumabi. And no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
It's time to crown Miss World South Africa 2024. Tune into S3 this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8 p.m. as Miss World South Africa 24 takes center stage on S3. This year's pageant will be taking place live at the Sun City Super Bowl with tickets available at Quicket. Channel your inner star with the 2024 Miss World South Africa finale this Saturday, the 5th of October at 8:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Before the sport will be the MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Muyaha. What's coming up today, Jimmy?
Good evening, John. Good evening to the listeners. We've got a very interesting show today. We're going to be chatting to the South African Reserve Bank around the push for digital payments or digital banking. They put out a press release today and the Reserve Bank Governor Lesotho Kganyago spoke around the fact that South Africans still use cash and maybe use too much cash, and we should be moving towards digital payments. We're going to be speaking to SARB around that and trying to understand that. Then we've got a conversation with the FSCA, Financial Sector Conduct Authority that works hand in hand with SARB, around the latest enforcements from their perspective. We've seen, of course, following from the conversation you had a little earlier on around the former CFO of Steinhoff beginning his jail term. We're going to look at other enforcements and other results from there. There were some announcements around some collaborators in the BHI trust matter that's been in the news as well. So we're going to speak to the FSCA around all the work they've been doing. We do it as often as we can around a Wednesday or a Thursday sometimes to keep our consumers informed as part of our consumer awareness segments. Then we've got a conversation with Regent Business School around their latest offering for 2025, and then we wrap things up with a conversation as part of our SME of the Week feature that we do every Thursday. We're going to be speaking to a brewery in Darling. There's a little town called Darling. It's in the Western Cape, and the brewery is called Darling Brew. I've got a conversation.
Yeah, been there. Love it.
Oh, there we go. So I've got a conversation with the MD of Darling Brew around what it is they're doing. They've got a new product, a gluten-free ale that they've launched now at the start of October. So there we go. Something for you to try.
How do you know you're getting old? A gluten-free ale starts appealing to Okay,
it's the simple things in life, right? It's the simple things, right?
I'm excited by gluten-free ale. All right, what else?
There we go. So that's what we've got on the show coming up today. Before we get to that, the markets have had a far less exciting day on our local front. International markets also a bit of a mixed bag. Markets in China are still closed. It is Golden Week, of course. National Day was on the 1st of October, so for the next 7 or 8 days or so, Golden Week takes place. Chinese markets do not trade. They get to enjoy a bit of time off. I wonder if we could pull that off. But some other markets did trade today. Sydney was up marginally. The Nikkei in Tokyo was up almost 2%. All of the European markets were in the red. The DAX down 1%. The CAC 40 in France 1.5%, almost 1.4% in the red. The FTSE in London 0.5% in the red. US markets are in the red at the moment today as well. Nasdaq 0.25%, S&P 0.33%, and the Dow 0.2% in the red. Our own local markets not much better at all. The resources counters 1.5% in the red. Industrials 0.5% in the red. Financials 0.8% in the red. As as a result, all share down 0.75%. The top 40 down 0.8%. The rand is back at 17 rand and 51 cents against the US dollar. 22 rand 96 against the British pound. 19 rand 29 will buy you €1, and $1 Australian will cost you 11 rand and 98 cents. On the commodities front, platinum is still at $1,000. Palladium is just below $1,000. Brent crude is at $76.84, and the gold price doesn't know what it wants to do. It's at $2,651 an ounce, pretty much where it was yesterday.
Jimmy Miyaha, thank you very much. More in the MoneyWeb Market Update after the news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Let's take calls. Sorry, I lost my concentration for a second there. 18 minutes to 6. Let's take calls. We're going to Solomon. You want to talk about what's happening in the Middle East? Hello, Solomon. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold, Solomon. See if we can get a better line. While we're doing that, let's go to Mzwandile in Gqeberha. Hello, Mzwandile. What you want to talk about the grants?
Yeah, John, listen, man, I think this debate about social grants, we must be more scientific about it when it comes to unemployment. And then how I propose we approach it is this way. First and foremost, we must have a data of how many institutions, private companies, that is, outside of government, are creating jobs. Mm-hmm. Okay? So let's say there's 100,000 companies. Then we do an audit of those companies, are they black or white? And I'll tell you why this is important. We already know majority of them are white.
Okay.
Then the question should be, all right, if the majority of the population in South Africa are black, why is it that blacks are not creating jobs and we're still dependent on white companies to create jobs? That is what we are not yet addressing.
Do we still have, hold on. Do we still have white companies in South Africa? Aren't there laws about that, first of all?
What do you mean, do we still have them?
We have BEE laws, so is there still such a thing as a white company?
No, my brother, there is. How do you define it then? BEE laws are only applicable when you are going to trade with government. So a white guy who owns a shop there, what compels him to be BEE? Why? What benefit would there be? John, if you started a company tomorrow morning,
yes,
your company is not going to be BEE, is it?
No, but I have to be BEE compliant, and I have to fill that out every year.
Oh, but what does that entail, though, to be BEE compliant? The point I'm making is the ownership of the company is white. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, so what you want to find out why black people, if white people majority own businesses, which I think they do, then why aren't black people creating businesses?
Exactly, because where I'm going with that is then we can have better concentration of how to address and enable black people to become job creators. And why I'm saying that, John, which goes back to what your guest was saying. In the Eastern Cape, for instance, majority of our people do not reside in suburbs or in metros. They reside in your former homelands. So you cannot then expect a white service provider, a white business to go and create jobs there. It is the people in those villages and in the townships who must create jobs amongst themselves. But we must first understand why those jobs are not being created. In the absence of that, John...
I feel like, just on that note, hold that thought. I feel like it's a financing issue, Mzwandile. And we've had an issue with banks before, that banks just aren't willing to give people loans and startups and those kind of things, willing to take that, they always call it a risk, right? We've got to overcome that problem. But again, your point is the research to find out.
Please let me make my last point. Then you've nailed it. Now, if you are saying it's a finance issue, it then tells you we're channeling the money incorrectly. Yes. Instead of addressing the ability for our people to access funding where they can create jobs and have less demand for social grants, instead of channeling the money that way, we're now dealing with the aftermath of the problem, which is social grants. That's where the issue is. So unless our government is conscious of deliberately channeling development funding towards black entrepreneurs, you're always going to have this imbalance which ends up being racial again.
But also not just the government, but across the board. If a black person goes to, and we've seen this with Westbank, if somebody goes to a bank and goes, Hazard, I want to start a small business in rural Eastern Cape, they're going to get laughed at. But if a white person goes, I want to open a small shop in the middle of Port Elizabeth, they'll give the money.
That white person already comes with a financial track record as well. So John, and that's the thing is commercial banks do not fund startups. So somebody must fund the gap between commercial banks and startups, and that's what government should be doing. But you don't have that, John.
Mzondela,
that's the issue.
Thank you very much for raising that point. Let's go to Janus in Cape Town. You want to talk about employment as well? Go ahead.
Hi, John. Listen, I've got a problem, but I will approach it from different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we're talking about the racism and the affirmative action, and you know, for the last 30 years, it proved that it doesn't work. That more tougher laws that the government create, less companies are coming to South Africa. Even our people, you know, we lost thousands and thousands. My son is in New Zealand, and he paying taxes there to provide the opportunity for the New Zealanders. We lost so many people, well educated and trained. You know, their salary were huge here. Like, for instance, my son was earning about 80,000 rand. You know, and we lost him.
Okay.
And he's now
what's the
serving other
alternative?
people.
What's the alternative, Jonas? Give me a solution.
Drop the color of the skin as employment. That's the one thing. But also change attitude of our workers. John, if you will allow me one day to explain to you, because I've got a good idea how we can do it, but it's not a 1 minute of work. Creating the employment and education for the colleges, especially on the building side, because I'm an electrical guy.
We've got your number.
If you allowed me to do it, I will explain to you with pleasure.
Yes.
And we can do.
We got your number. Thank you very much. What is the alternative? Let us know solutions, not problems.
Good afternoon, John. I just want to say that Osisiwe Mkhwebane's entire woes dependent on a particular group of a particular descent. I think that's a nail in her political career.
We've played that one. Let's start at the top then. I don't think we've played this one.
Hi, John here. It's Hein from Alberton. Hope you're well. Just got a comment on the state of our cricket in South Africa at this point in time. So the reason our cricket is doing the way it's doing is because of this, because of this whole Shamsi thing. The cricketers are more interested in playing, the T20 leagues across the world because of the money than actually being involved in the national team. And that is the difference between the rugby and the cricket at this point in time. And until that doesn't change, our cricket is not going to go anywhere soon.
Our rugby players play in Japan. They play in France. They play in Scotland. They play everywhere. They play in Ireland. And other countries do exactly the same thing. West Indies do it. India do it. England do it. Australia do it. So it can't be that, can it?
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Selgun Governor from Durban. John, with regard to the Steinhoff scandal, I'd just like to find out, where does the Auditor General or the auditors fit into the scandal? Because each financial year, Steinhoff books were audited, and how come no irregularities were picked up? So how does the Auditor General fit into this Steinhoff scandal? Thank you.
Oh, hi, good afternoon, John. Wow, people are just making me laugh on the WhatsApp line. Wow, that amount is very... by the way, my name is Sia from Durban, Tizuma. I have not heard about that story, but that dude is old, eh? So 5 years behind bars, I'm sure he's going to enjoy it too. He's moneyed. I'm sure that money, 300 and whatever million, that's too much. I mean, when I dream, I only dream about 3 million rand, will change my life, but that's like 1,000 times that. So, that's huge. That's huge. Thanks for the good show, my homie. Thanks.
Let's see if we can pause it. He's only 49. He's not old. He's 49 years old. It's 5 years, 49. He comes out at 54. Has he put some little money on the side, or do you think that's all gone now? Let's take a quick ad break, and then we're going to do our winning feature today.
Masandawana ladies want to rubber stamp their authority with maximum points to stay on the summit.
The Copper Belt ladies want to fight with all they have to move away from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday 5 October at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
For 18 years, Kumbulekaya has been fostering healing through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
I grew up without a mom.
So what happened to your family?
What family? You are my family. What happened to you?
Witness as families forgive one another and reunite after a long time. Catch the new season of Kumbulekaya on SABC 1 every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Jon Gericke on SAFM.
All right, we got to talk. Temba came in. Temba's the producer of the show. You don't really hear him. Keys, all right, we're going. All right, we're almost finished. We got this. Our winning feature, my favorite feature about positive things happening in the country, a mural inspired by the colourful Ndebele culture recently unveiled at the Mall of Africa to honour the iconic Dr. Esther Mahlangu. The mural represents a historic moment. It's the first large-scale Ndebele mural created on staircases. Let's find out more with Jackie van Niekerk, the CEO of Attack. Jackie, thank you very much. How was that launch? What was it like to reveal this thing at the end of September?
Yeah, hi, good evening. You know what, it's such an honor to honor such a global icon, local Dr. Esther Mahlangu. And, it was almost a little bit of an emotional moment for us, getting all of this pulled together, and there it is. And it's 2 staircases that we got done. And, summary, it's a real honor.
It's all part of a beautification project. Tell us what's happening in Waterfall City.
Yeah, Waterfall City, as we're growing and we're developing more and more, we're a city in the middle between Joburg and Pretoria on the N1, and we're a city that, we're more than just about Mall of Africa and building buildings. We're a city about community, we care, we commerce, and starting about putting colouring in, as you can say it, the city, with incredible art and celebrating our artists and kicking this off. We felt no other better way of partnering with Dr. Mahlangu and the students to help colour in.
This has been a long process. Take us back to, 2018?
Yeah, actually 2014.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. Kicking off with the Mall of Africa, the big catalyst of the development. Mall of Africa almost, 9 years old now. And, hit a bit by COVID, but, we're continuing with the urban design with the vision that was always envisioned 10 years ago, and we're learning lessons along the road, but you're really starting to, it's becoming a vibrant city, in the heart of Gauteng.
We were talking to TBWA South Africa earlier. We were talking about getting African ideas to the globe and everybody walking together. I'm imagining this is like that. We're celebrating an African icon with some African art in Africa. It's a great way, and I mean, tourists go to the Mall of Africa just because it's a destination. How important do you feel that is?
I think it's vital, I sometimes think we as South Africans speak too shy about the incredible work that we do. And I think even celebrating, not just by actually painting the murals on staircases, we also took it a step further. Within Mall of Africa, we've got this cool concept called Souk, where it's on-demand retail, where for the next month we're celebrating Dr. Mahlangu's work inside the mall in a digital format that has also never been done. And it's not just driving feet, but also celebrating and honouring and also telling our kids about the legacy and touching the lives of, might be the next Esther Mahlangu. And that's what it's about for us.
Yeah, we have this thing, we love our malls, but they don't have to be boring things with just shops in. They can be something else.
Absolutely. And, I'll encourage people to go and visit the Esther Mahlangu, exhibition at Mall of Africa. It's more of in a digital format. And, we're also talking to the youngsters and the younger generation, to infuse that love for no matter what you want to do and what you want to achieve. I think Dr. Esther's story, it's a fundamental story that that we should celebrate and inspire the younger generation to be more.
I love the fact that it was originally going to be in Sandton, and then it just took too long, bureaucratic hurdles, and you decided, all right, come here. It looks better over here.
Yeah, we are our own municipality in Waterfall, so we could get it through easier.
Are there plans for more? Are you going to stick to a theme?
Absolutely. You know, that's the cool part about, developing a city almost from scratch, and you've got the blueprint, on the table. We learn, we move on. We've had other art installations that did not work. Definitely more to come. And we hope to colour in, make Waterfall interesting, a cool place, but also preserve legacy. And what I love about this project, it was Dr. Esther's students that actually concluded the project.
Right.
And once again, it's about the community that we brought along with this cool exhibition.
Okay, point us in the direction. I'm coming into the Mall of Africa. I come off the highway, turn left. Where do I go?
So it's at the staircase, opposite Deloitte. So as you turn off the interchange, you're taking Mall of Africa. As you turn in off from Allendale, you either can turn left or right, as there's two staircases in the city. So if you turn left and you turn another left, you'll find it, or if you turn right and another right, you'll find another staircase.
Okay.
So two staircases, it's massively big. Dr. Esther was also gracious to incorporate more than just Indabele, other African art, and as well as our corporate colours at Waterfall. So it's really something we are proud of, and we hope people enjoy it.
Dr. Jackie van Niekerk, one day is one day. Jackie van Niekerk, CEO of ATTACQ, ATTACQ, is with the launch of this iconic Dr. Esther Mahlangu mural. You can go see it at the Mall of Africa. Well done to them. Getting local artists to do local artwork on local malls. I love it. Instead of just painting. Malls can be so boring sometimes. So change things up a little bit. Let's take a voice note or two. We got 1 minute before the end of the show, and I've pressed the wrong button, so I'm going to have to go over there. Let's take one more voice note before, or maybe two, before the end of the show.
Good afternoon, John. This is Concrete Bizana Hardout. John, I would like to say I'm happy about the GNU so far. I'm very, very happy. Petrol went down, and the thieves are gotten. They are grabbing each other now. You see, so us as a community, on the ground, we are benefiting about it. Thanks, John.
Hello, John. Don't say that the DA is jumping on a bandwagon. Whose bandwagon are they jumping on? They are just trying to protect the dignity of people who are condemned and criticized by failures.
That's the show. Thank you very much to Lerato for pushing the buttons, Tumi Tebogo, Vosani, and Temba putting the show together at 6 o'clock.
Date set for Concourt hearing on Pala Pala and Horizon SASSA grant applications. Good evening. The Constitutional Court has set a date in the EFF's bid to challenge the National Assembly's 2022 decision to not adopt the Section 89 independent panel report into Pala Pala. This as the EFF contends that Parliament acted irrationally by not referring it to the impeachment committee. The party wants the decision to be declared irrational